the Around the NFL podcast, is jealous of the way Marc looks at Dan.
Well, one person is in between us. From the Chris Wessling podcast studio, it's Around the NFL. I'm Dan Hanzus with Gregg Rosenthal, that man who looks at the way Marc and I look at each other. Marc Sessler. And he goes,
That is not true. I'm loving how we're all looking at each other. You know, we're coming off the team of ATL delivering. You doubt the NFL for 1 second after a snoozy afternoon slate. And here it comes.
Sell it.
With a season finale for the ages.
272 games now in the books, and the playoffs are set, Marc Sessler.
You know, Gregg, when I do look at Dan that way, and you're here on the table in between us, it's just a nice Gregg sandwich in a way. We're just both giving you our...
That warmth.
Yeah. You're not excluded from it.
Well, the bread is always my favorite part.
Yeah.
Back to the games.
You are the meat. 272 in the books. The playoffs are set.
10 regular seasons in the books.
10 regular seasons.
For us.
In the books. Here's the playoff schedule. Let's start there.
Yeah.
Okay.
The Westivus game. The traditional early Saturday ball game. 4:30 p.m. Eastern. That's later.
Yeah.
Westivus used to be earlier. Seattle Seahawks 7 seed at San Francisco 2 seed on Fox. Saturday night, Chargers 5 seed at Jags 4 seed AFC window. That's NBC Peacock. Sunday, we have number 7 Miami at number 2 Buffalo at 1 p.m. Eastern.
Feels like a 1 p.m.
on
game.
CBS. At 4:30 p.m. Eastern, the NFC matchup between the Giants and Vikings, a 6-3 matchup on Fox. Then a final Sunday game, Baltimore 6 seed at Cincinnati, 3 seed rematch of Week 18. And then, yes, new as of last season, a Monday night playoff game, 8:15 Eastern. Dallas Cowboys, the 5 seed at Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the 4 seed. There you go. That's the first round of the playoffs. We're going to get to all the games, but that is what we got coming up next week. Here we go.
I mean, the least surprising development on our entire planet is that they put the Dallas Cowboys against Tom Brady as the Monday night affair, right?
I don't know. Actually, last year that wasn't like the primetime slot, you know, because it's ESPN and everything. I think they had some bad games there. They of course, had a game cut short last Monday night, so that's like almost a make good. And it's a fun little slate.
Marc, sometimes you got to, with your corporate partners, you got to make sure the relationship stays strong. So you give them America's team before they eliminate themselves.
That's not my role.
I think they're all sweating because they're like, ooh, how can we top what the old Lions and Packers did on NBC? We need the Lions in this wild card. That's the only thing missing.
And then, Gregg, you spent all day long telling Dan and I, and all week and weeks long telling us that it didn't matter that the Lions weren't playing. I didn't say that.
I said it could be great theater whether they are there or not.
What? No. Well, that's what.
Whether they can make the playoffs or not.
Let's set the table here.
Yeah.
We're going to get through all the games from Sunday. We're going to start with the NFC and that Sunday night game, but also keep in mind we're going to hit the AFC later, including, obviously, the first game for the Buffalo Bills since Damar Hamlin's issue on Monday night, and what a dramatic scene that was. So a lot of good football to talk about, including keeping our eye on what's going on with the league as Black Monday. New Horizons Monday fast approaches. But let us start. Yes, Sunday Night Football, the final game of the regular season. There it is. New Horizons. That's called massaging.
It's a softer, gentler approach to
18 teams facing New Horizons. The seasons are over.
We start at Lambeau Field, where the Green Bay Packers were 1 win away from an improbable playoff appearance when they looked down and out. The Detroit Lions, the team of around the NFL, found out earlier their season was ending no matter what after the Seattle Seahawks were victorious over the Rams, and yet we still got a great ball game.
So here we go. The Lions can end this ball game right here. 4th and 1 from the Green Bay 15. Goff takes the snap, back, looks, throws, caught, first down, Detroit Lions. DJ Chark down inside the 10-yard line. This game is over. Yes. It is over. Execute a couple of snaps, and these Lions are going home with a victory. How big has this football team been tonight? You want to change the conversation, win some games. And that's exactly what they've done.
Hit it, Graver! One last time, baby.
Who will be the team? Team!
The TL. Only one team, we're in the right. Here we go, Mark.
Team! Oh!
This is a very special honor.
Ow! Oh, it's the last time we'll hear that theme. But, man, the Lions go out in a beautiful way, a 20-16 win over the Green Bay Packers. The Detroit Lions, who were once 1-6 and roadkill in the NFC, finished 9-8 and eliminate the hated Green Bay Packers in their How many big games have the Packers lost in their building?
312.
In the Aaron Rodgers era. It's usually happened in the postseason. This year, they sucked in that fan base and then laid an egg on Sunday night. But I still, Greg, want to give plenty of credit, as we should, to the Lions, who could have easily lost that juice once they knew they weren't going to go to the dance, and yet they finished off what was a truly promising season for the organization.
You say lay an egg. I hear you. I say lost a great game to a better team.
They scored 16 points in a do-or-die game in their building.
Turn
It was a
2
terrible
turnovers.
performance.
All I'm saying is, like, these two teams were better than plenty of the teams that made the playoffs. I believe that.
I agree with that.
The Lions had to go out and take that game. I love that the Lions get the ball in the fourth quarter, down 3, march down to take the lead. Then on 3rd and 10, Aaron Rodgers sees a full house blitz. No F's given by Aaron Glenn. He sends the house and dares the 4-time MVP to beat them. Instead, he makes a mistake. Kirby Joseph picks it off. It was the 3rd near interception that Joseph had. That this one he finishes off. Then on 2nd and 17 to call that lateral play. The stones of Dan Campbell and Ben Johnson in that moment. And then for the Lions season to essentially end like so many other moments of this Lions season, a 4th down decision. You can go for the field goal to get up a touchdown, or you can do what Dan Campbell does, and you can go for it and not worry so much about bad outcomes and trust in your players and end this Packers season. I wish they were in the playoffs, but man, you can't tell me that this is not a sweet, sweet victory and moment for this franchise, the team of ATN.
It kind of threw me on the broadcast because they mentioned more than once, well, because they've been eliminated, probably they wouldn't have done that one play, the pitch back to DeAndre Swift. Maybe they wouldn't go for it on 4th one. It's like, but this is who Dan Campbell and the Lions have been all year long. It looked to me like a lot of the Lions games where it isn't like we're trying to be completely out of bounds in terms of our risk-taking, but they do go for it, and it's a very 2023 approach. It is a massive organizational lift for Dan Campbell, for everyone, because when they were truly floating in the abyss with their record as it was like, nice story, but a lot of these Hard Knocks nice stories, there's nothing to it when it comes down to it, and they completely turned around. I mean, they overcame a couple of things tonight, too, because you had a Kirby Joseph pick that was taken away by that hands to the face. They had a missed field goal in a tight game. That Jamison Williams 61-yard catch-and-run bomb that was pulled back by flag. I mean, a lot of penalties went against the Lions tonight, but they kept overcoming, and I think that is who they are. And, yes, I think if they were in the playoffs, they are not a team you'd want to face. It's a fortunate situation for a couple of these mezzanine-level NFC teams.
Yeah, you feel a little bit cheated, with all due respect to the Seattle Seahawks, to the New York Giants, those teams in the back end of the playoff picture. Detroit, to me, and for instance, I have a bit of a conundrum with the power rankings, which will come out in a couple days, and it's like, I'm going to have the Lions as a top 10 team in the NFL because that's exactly what they are. It just didn't work out for them in terms of tiebreakers, and they just ran out of games to get into the dance. So but it does give them a huge kind of trampoline jump as they look to next year, and there will be expectations in a way that you haven't seen around this team in many years, and that's for down the road. Do we have Jamal Williams after the game speaking with NBC Sports?
I'm just grateful. I'm grateful to be able to play this game for my great-grandfather, and I'm glad that he's looking down on me, and I know I'm making him proud.
You said this ball's for him?
Yeah, this is for him. Another thing, stop playing us, man. We the Detroit Lions. We the Detroit Lions. Stop playing with us. I don't even watch TV, but I heard everybody already pick the Packers over us.
That's the Lions in the nutshell. He pivoted mid-tier. Like the tears were halfway down his face talking about his grandfather to pointing at the camera and saying nobody believed in us. And he's right. Except for Marc Sessler believed in him.
I was just going to jump in.
Well, this is a smart strategy that we talked about before. I was like, I had a feeling that everyone was going to jump on the Aaron Rodgers thing. It's like they are the team of ATL. So I'm just obviously going to pick the Lions thinking less people would. And no one on this little graphic they did, no one else did. It makes you look.
As I said in the text, it's kind of a clout hack.
It is.
And now what you need to do, the next step, are your representation. And I know who your representation is. You need to get this to Lions social media so they can amplify it. And then your clout is
I know on Gregg's game day view,
engorged.
You also picked it.
I've been picking them every week. They're the key to me getting into first place here. The Lions keep winning.
Your fault is you're doing this TV show on
no
NFL
one pays
Network.
attention to that.
I'm just doing this .com picks thing that gets tweeted.
Right.
That's how you do it.
I used to be in that picks thing, and then the guy that sent the email like, "Hey, get your picks in," just gave up on me. I couldn't do it anymore. I just I can't.
One other thing,
I give you respect for staying with it.
Thank you. Well, I'm a company person. I think that something that almost overtook what happened to Detroit in this game was the imagery, the camera work, and the somewhat mysterious language by the NBC broadcasting group about Aaron Rodgers arm in arm with Randall Cobb walking off the field, and it was Jameson Williams who walked up to Rodgers and said, could we switch jerseys, which is a common thing, maybe not always with Aaron Rodgers, but he sort of said, no, I want to keep this one.
Jameson Williams has got I have 4 career catches. Can I have maybe your last jersey
stuff
ever?
Happens all the time, but it's just like the way they showed Rodgers pensively looking around Lambeau, it changed the tone.
You ever get that feeling when you're watching something or you're listening to the announcers, or like they know something that you don't?
Yeah.
Yes.
There was that vibe. The way Tirico was setting it up, and then the way the camera was just – I mean, this truly was like kind of the story of the game. Yes, the Packers season was over and another season was over for Rodgers, this all-time great player. But for a lot of football fans, the story was really like the Lions and the journey of their season and overcoming so many obstacles and then winning in Lambeau to end the season. But that is not the way NBC covered it. And we'll find out. We're going to learn more about it. But they have the cameras right in Rodgers' face. He obviously is taking things in, looking around the field with his best buddy, Randall Cobb, walking back into the tunnel, into the unknown. So we'll see. We'll see if that was a red herring or something that tells us what's coming next for the Packers.
I absolutely got the feeling that Tirico and Collinsworth had a feeling about this game.
Or more than a feeling.
Based on the conversation that they had.
They spent days with Rodgers and with Green Bay. It's just like
with Aaron Rodgers. Yeah. And LaFleur after the game said, in my mind, he expects Rodgers back, but he's going to decide that. And we'll see, because that does paint a different picture. It does, because this was such, a disappointing end to this season for the Packers. You're right. I've been so wrapped up in the Lions that I hadn't even thought about kind of what a crushing end, because the Packers would have gone into the playoffs believing that they could do something. Now, either the Packers or the Lions would have been playing the 49ers. Tough spot.
Tough draw.
I think the 49ers have to be thrilled they're playing the Seahawks, considering
those three?
Their history against them, their recent history this year. But man, that's a crushing way to lose after they got everyone all worked up and had a lead in the fourth quarter over the Detroit Lions. Give up that touchdown drive, throw an interception, can't get a stop. Ultimately, they fell short big time in the fourth quarter, just like they did throughout the beginning part of the season.
I would have loved to see Lions-Niners. I think that would have been ultra fascination.
Would have been fun.
You know who you can blame for that? A little bit.
Who?
Baker Mayfield. Just saying.
We'll get to it.
I mean, among other people, if we're going to look at the season
We'll get to it.
globally.
I'm just saying, before we move on from this game, I do want to say, like, there's a chance Jared Goff, like, we don't know what his future is going to be. Certainly you expect him to be the week 1 starter there next year, but you never know. The way this game started with him throwing a lot of dirt balls and struggling in the cold, everyone kind of joking about his small hands. Man, there was the drive before halftime where it's like 3rd and 5, and they're down 9-3, and they just got the fumble back, and he leads the drive, and then Campbell goes for it on 4th and 2 when they're down 16-13. Remember, they're going for it on 4th down when they were behind on that touchdown. And Goff had that nice throw down the field to, like, he delivered, man. He delivered play after play after play.
Just
he really
like
delivered.
Jamal Williams, who we heard breaking Barry Sanders' touchdown record, and Jared Goff. He may not be like the John Wayne of NFL quarterbacks, not the picture of like what the great ones look like or how they perform, but he was fearless in this game as well. Goodbye to the – oh, yes, Marc.
Well, I was going to say, like, how many – it's been a season where a number of quarterbacks have changed what we think about him entirely, but the easy, comfortable jokes about Jared Goff and his personality and his sort of, bowl of milk or glass of milk type persona, like, throw it all away. I mean, what he did this season was pretty amazing.
Great year for that offense. Great year for the Lions, even if it falls short of the playoffs. So long, team of ATN. I don't know how we pick another one next year. That is the GOAT team of ATN in my humble opinion. Let's move on now. All right. We mentioned the Seattle Seahawks. They are going to the playoffs because they got it done. Give them credit last week against the Jets and, yes, against Baker Mayfield and the Rams.
Can Myers win this one in overtime for the Seahawks? There's the snap. There's the spot. The kick is away. And the kick is good! The Seahawks win the game! The final regular season game of the year. They win it at home against the Rams. And now the playoff chances still live for the Seahawks.
And as we know, they got the result they needed on Sunday night with the Packers falling. That allows the Seattle Seahawks to move into the postseason with Geno Smith as their quarterback. That is a real success story for this organization. A 19-16 win over the LA Rams, who, as we've said last week, had already set a record for the most losses ever for a defending champion. They finished 5-12. This is a game that was close throughout. Seattle had gotten set up after a very questionable, in my opinion, personal foul on Jalen Ramsey on a hit on the sideline on Geno Smith. Set him up for what looked like it was going to be a game-winning football at the end of regulation. Jason Meyer hits the uprights, but after a terrible Mayfield interception in overtime, they get another chance, kick the field goal, game over. Seattle advances.
The look on Sean McVay's face as he was walking to go shake Pete Carroll's hand was very memorable to me. The day started with reports really pumping up that McVay may not be back with the Rams. Ian Rappaport, Jay Glazer, everyone. But he had always owned Pete Carroll. And that was the difference this season, I guess, between the Seahawks of old and this Seahawks team. I know they got to play this Rams team, and yet when you watch these two Rams games against the Seahawks, they had both of them in control in the fourth quarter, and Geno Smith and the Seahawks eventually get it done. I'm not going to try to pretend like they played a great game. Geno threw a pick right off the bat to Jalen Ramsey, seemed a little shook, didn't throw with a lot of confidence for much of the game, could have had more picks, had 2 in this game. But when they needed a drive late, got a little help by that Ramsey call, but they were also moving the ball by the end of the game much better. By that point of the game, Baker Mayfield had sort of run out of answers, was just throwing up hope balls, and the Seahawks did just enough against a bad Rams team to get there and to give the fighting Dan Campbells a chance. And I think Seahawks fans who were whining on Monday about how unfair it was that the Lions were playing later should send an apology, maybe a fruit basket to Detroit for all that they've done.
Sure.
It's a lot of fruit baskets.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, the after the game, after the missed field goal, you go to OT, and Seattle goes 3 and out, and there's the chance for the Rams. And, Baker, who was very up and down with the Rams, just like he's been for most of his career, they have a chance to win the game. Van Jefferson kind of streaks open on a 2nd and 15. And if Baker just zips it in there, that's a big gain, and who knows what happens at that point. Instead, he puts a lot of air under it. It throws a balloon that's intercepted by Quandre Diggs, who waves at Bobby Wagner on the sideline as he goes out of bounds. And it was very close to over at that point. So a tough way for the Baker season to end as we look at a very unknown time around the Rams. The Sean McVay's status unknown, Baker's status, who knows. Stafford
I
will
think
be back.
if you look at that Baker performance against the Broncos on Christmas Day, which was pretty flawless, although it wasn't asking him to save the world, but it was a very clean game. But outside of that, because of that Raiders comeback, they were abysmal for most of that game until the very end. And it's been spurts where Baker, I think, has been impressive to come in and do it without a full off season or a lot of time to get up to snuff in their offense. But a lot of times it's looked like Baker Mayfield, and especially last week and this week, missing certain throws that would have saved the Rams. You're playing with no Cooper Kupp. I mean, there's people missing all over the place. The offensive lines look better despite, Baker's done fine for the situation he's in, but he's him, though. He's just him.
The pocket was clean and Jefferson was open, and like I said, he threw a blimp.
Right, and a couple plays before that, I guess I'm thinking of the drive to end regulation where they could have gone down and tried to kick a game-winning field goal. He also missed Jefferson, and he's just slow making decisions.
Yeah.
Where he's always like a beat late, and that's been his problem. And the Seahawks benefited from that. They got the Jets at the right time. They had the right Week 18 opponent, and they beat the Lions. And it sucks, but they played that game. I remember that game well. It was like
48 to 45.
48 to 45. It was one of Geno's best games. It was at the point of the season where the Lions defense just couldn't do anything, and they tried to keep up in a shootout. And unfortunately for the Lions, that game loomed super large because I don't think the Seahawks team that's entering the playoffs is at their best right now. You never know if things could change, but I think this is the worst matchup possible. They got blown out twice by the 49ers. 48-20 was the combined score of those two games, and it didn't look that close either one of those times. You never know. It's still an incredible success story for them to be able to celebrate tonight. Ken Walker had a nice day, 114 yards. They really rode him.
Here's a quote from Diggs, who had the interception that set up the win. Of Jefferson. That dude was wide open. In my mind, I was thinking the worst. I felt like I was 25 again, running and jumping in the air. It was one of those plays. They drew it up perfect, got us in the coverage they wanted, and I was going to go out and make a play. So, credit to Seattle. They're moving on, and it might not be the game that people want to see, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. Seahawks fans, congratulations. It's been an awesome ride.
Mike got McVay out of the division, too. Really,
maybe.
The way that ended and the look on his face, I was like, man, if they had won this game, would it have changed Rams'
I hope not.
future?
I don't think it could.
I hope not,
no.
but that feeling and the reports that he's just so down and stuff, and then he just looked crestfallen.
I wanted to mention that. It is New Horizons Monday coming up, and this was from Schefter. McVay has gone back and forth on the decision and needs time to get away to process all that has transpired over the past year. Winning a Super Bowl, being courted to work in television, getting married, watching his wife's home country of Ukraine invaded, losing his grandfather, and then coaching a team that has fallen short of expectations. Which one of those doesn't fit in with the others?
Well, all right. I know what you're saying. But, who knows?
I'm sorry. Everything's serious.
No,
Okay.
no, not at all. But just
Okay.
that. That's coming from him, I would.
Right.
And maybe
I'm just
on
wondering,
the home
is
front,
the war in Ukraine really factoring in his decision-making?
Of course it stands out when you bullet point it like that.
It's kind of the most absurd thing I've heard this entire year.
None of the rest of it, I think, felt like it mattered, except for that this season's been miserable, and he works himself in a way that he was considering retiring last year. I don't think that was
Well, do you remember the
a
feature that came out about him
Yeah.
before the season? And, the one picture it painted was the fact that he can't just let any of this stuff go.
So we'll see.
But they also talked about him as someone who wants to go out and have the best coach, the most coaching wins ever. So it's which are you?
I read our friend Jordan Rodriguez in The Athletic about it, and I just thought it was notable. She noted that the Rams don't think he'd be retiring from football. They think he'd be taking a break, kind of like Sean Payton. And by taking a break,
That's a move.
they could either be waiting for him to come back, which is almost impossible, or They just know that they'll be able to get some draft picks for him, and they could use some draft picks
yes.
whenever he does come back.
It could be mutually beneficial at this point in Rams history. It doesn't feel like they're close to getting back to a Super Bowl. And I just wonder with that roster, and everyone's saying, Matthew Stafford will be back. I don't know. This is an interesting. Jordan would be a great person to have on the show for our next episode of Flashpoint.
Absolutely. Because if McVay knew that something about Stafford that we don't know, and then the Rams know something about McVay that we don't know, it's like a house of cards.
All right, let us take a break, and we will continue on. All right, welcome back. If you're just joining us, which would be weird, it's a podcast. Week 18's in the books, 272 in the books. We got the playoffs set. We continue now to roll through the NFC. We've been waiting for the Eagles to lock down the NFC number 1 seed. They finally did it.
Hurts gives it off to Scott. Up the middle. Touchdown! Boston Scott. The giant killer does it again.
Yes, he does.
Okay, that was the best highlight I could think to give to Gravedigger. This was not... I was tasked with watching both NFC East games today. Not great. Sometimes you feel like you're earning your money a little bit.
Yeah.
NFC East was not dynamic in Week 18. Which isn't to say teams involved in the NFC East will not be dynamic in the next few weeks. We got 3 of them in the playoffs.
It is to say that maybe some of them will be.
The Philadelphia Eagles are the number 1 seed after a 22-16 win over the New York Giants, who remain the number 6 seed. The Giants next week will travel, as I said, to Minneapolis to face the Vikings, who they played very tough on Christmas Eve. The Eagles, what do they say? The fruit of their spoils? Is that right? The spoils of their fruit?
To the victor goes the spoils.
The fruit? Something about fruit. They get fruit. It's
the
very
fruit
late.
of their labor?
Yeah.
Fruit of their labor. Wait, did anybody hear anything?
No, I didn't hear anything.
I think it was fruit of their labor. Yes, Justin?
Yeah, just back to your earlier point. That was Philly's only touchdown. What other highlight were we going to do?
That's it. That's all it is.
Kenny Galladay's touchdown? That was kind of cool.
Kenny Galladay finally in his last game as a Giant most likely did score a touchdown. But anyway, they take care of business. I said on the Thursday preview show, boys, that I thought it was kind of an important game for the Eagles, not just to win against the Giants' backups. And trust me, it was all Giants' backups for the most part. Play well, and they didn't really. I think they had the touchdown and 5 field goals. The offense was a little funky, but Jalen Hurts came out of it seemingly healthy. Between the injury costing him 2 weeks and then not doing much today, he's out of the MVP conversation. But more importantly, he should be ready to go in 2 weeks, and the Eagles will be as well. 14-3, big season for them.
And we're going to talk about a coach later in this show that took pains to explain why he played starters deep into a contest when there was no desire for that. The Giants hung around the Eagles with 0 snaps for Daniel Jones, Saquon Barkley, Dexter Lawrence, Kayvon Thibodeau, Leonard Williams, Andrew Thomas, John Feliciano. I mean, they really legit rolled out all your backups.
They played a 2 tight end set, basically, the whole game.
It's like a preseason game.
So that they wouldn't play their top 3 receivers. So that their top 3 receivers didn't risk getting hurt, which, good move. It's amazing they were competitive still.
Smart head coach.
But it's also crazy because it's like the Giants made the playoffs to the point where they had to really make sure they protected Isaiah Hodgins and Richie James. like the Chargers are out there, they say they can't start, but like the guys they're protecting are Isaiah Hodgins and Richie James, who were lucky to make the team back in.
Well, that's all they got right now.
That's good coaching. And the fact that they were competitive in this game, I think they'll be loving that. I think they're feeling good. I actually think the Giants kind of enter the playoffs playing better than they've played all season.
There was one absurd moment in this. Dan, do you agree the idea, because this, whether you want to keep it close or not, why show anything that you might use down the road? But they attempted that fake field goal where Jamie Gillan, just the Scottish Hammer, just got destroyed. And it's like, this game came down to 6 points. You could have a chance to be within 3. I mean, it's not a big deal, but it wasn't
actually a close game. It was 16-0 at halftime, and the Giants got a very late score to set up an onside kick. But the Eagles kind of controlled it the whole time. And Ian Eagle gets credit because as soon as that special teams gaffe occurred, He said, "Oh, the Scottish Hammer gets nailed." I was like, "That's a pro."
He nailed it.
We're going to talk about the Tennessee Titans later, Justin. So you might want to earmuffs this one. A.J. Brown set the Eagles' record for receiving, passing the great Mike Quick around 1,500 yards. He ended up with unbelievable season for him. The Eagles. I'm a little nervous about the Eagles. I think they're a team that they're going to have to show that they can get back to that top gear because it's been a while now since we've seen it, but they took care of business and got that 1 seed. It would have been an outright disaster if they lost out the last 3 weeks and didn't get that 1 seed. They got it. Now they get to rest up, and there you go.
This is kind of the perfect outcome for me personally because I like the Eagles.
Important.
I'm rooting for them. I picked them to win the Super Bowl.
Good.
But I do like the consternation in Philly and this result, them getting the 1 seed, but everyone's going to be like so anxious for the next couple weeks. And I don't know. I never know what to make of.
You enjoy that?
Yeah, I do. Like the Philly angst I enjoy. I never know what to make of it. Like when a team kind of comes to the finish line taking on water after a really dominant season, just because we've done this long enough. Sometimes, then they lose the first game, and everyone's like, "Oh, see," and then sometimes it doesn't matter.
14-0 late in the first quarter in the playoff game, and it's like, "Oh, okay."
But sometimes it doesn't matter at all. Like the Eagles, for instance, kind of slowed down at the end of that Foles season. I mean, I know it was Foles coming in there, but they didn't exactly end on it. And I can think of Patriots seasons where they ended really poorly in the regular season and then hot in the playoffs, and vice versa.
Someone's going to prove you right. Someone's going to prove you wrong because Philly, Dallas, Minnesota, Tampa, outside of San Francisco, and Seattle have all been full of warts in the last couple of weeks. They're fading and sort of just tripping their way into the playoffs. Like, please, we're inviting you into the postseason. Come through the door.
Yes.
It's a new season. You don't have to play San Francisco until the championship game at worst. So
that's the best
game.
Yes, avoid the Niners as long as you can. Yeah, let's stay in the NFC East and hit the other game because, yes, the Cowboys seem to be taking on some water, too, at the wrong time.
3rd and 6, snap to Prescott, quick throw to the far side. That one is picked up by Fuller at the 20. He's going to walk in. Pick 6, touchdown, Washington.
And once again, Dak Prescott will give you the opportunity on defense to take that ball away. Kendall Fuller missed it the first time. He had his hands all over that the second time.
All right, that's Bram Weinstein and
Julie Donaldson.
With the call.
Greg.
Calm down.
What's going on with you, Greg?
He loves ball.
You were waiting.
I don't doubt that.
My note said London Fletcher, and I was like,
Right,
I'm pretty sure.
I think we've been through this before where it's like definitely not London Fletcher speaking
I know.
at some point.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Are you trying to like Ron Burgundy me?
It's a 3-person booth, so sometimes I hadn't heard the call. So
I got it. I had it, though. Before Greg screamed it, I was going to say Julie Donaldson with the pick 6. And what she's referring to is Dak and the rest of the Cowboys were so shamelessly sloppy in this game and unplugged in terms of playing sharp competitive football that literally the play before that, he throws kind of a lazy pass that Fuller has a easy path to for a pick 6, only Fuller slipped and was unable to catch the ball. And before the announcers could even finish making the point of, oh, he really blew that, Dak does the exact same thing, targeting the exact same receiver and the exact same cornerback on the next play. This time it's an easy pick 6. And it was kind of like at that point, all she wrote, Washington cruises to a 26-6 win. And, again, we got Dallas going to Tampa, the 8-9 NFC South champion, on Monday night next week. And they'll be a favorite in that game. Maybe not a big favorite, maybe around 3 points, I would guess. But I don't know how any Cowboy fan or Mike McCarthy, for that matter, who's going to be feeling the heat, by the way, if they go one and done, can be feeling good about this team, how they ended the season. Something seems off, Mark, with the Cowboys, and I'm looking at their recent schedule here.
Well, that tells you the story. Look at the quarterbacks they played in the last month plus.
Yeah, you had the terrible loss to the Jaguars. You beat Gardner Minshew. You beat the Titans.
Josh
Dobbs, and then you lose to Sam Howell and the Commanders.
Right,
they barely
beat Davis Mills. I mean, they're just not all these teams are going to be able to surge this entire way. And it's not all about the Dak Prescott interceptions. I think if you take away, not that you can, but if you take away the turnovers, not this game stands out as a true mess, but he's been pretty great, I think, otherwise. It's just that they're not all these pick sixes are not the same. The stuff he threw today was just bad.
It's surprising.
Bad stuff.
Right. He has been incredibly unlucky. Like, for what it's worth, his turnover-worthy play percentage at PFF has been very average throughout the season. Not good, not bad, but it's really resulted in a huge amount of interceptions, some of which were not his fault. But this time, he's not playing well. I'm more concerned about the defense because that was this team's calling card for a while, but now they're thin at cornerback. Defensive tackle's clearly a problem. Like, they haven't been good at the second level in terms of their linebackers. They're getting smoked by Sam Howell, who, like, hey,
kind of look
Sam Howell.
Like Sam
How about that go ball he threw?
Yeah, that was a nice pass.
Yeah.
I mean, if you take the go ball out, his stats are not good, but you can't take it out. It's part of it. Yeah, that was an encouraging. If I'm the Commanders, it wouldn't stop me from being very aggressive to find a quarterback, but maybe he could be your backup next year. Yeah, I think Dak finished with 15 interceptions and 12 starts or whatever. And
he went 14 for 37 for 128.
It
What?
was so bad, and it made me think. I was wondering as I'm watching the game because Dallas, couldn't make any real move once it became clear that Philadelphia wasn't going to lose that game to New York. That get him out of the game, get these starters out of the game. But I think it was one of those things where the coach is like, I need to have them go out on something positive. And they did score a touchdown right before the half. And in retrospect, maybe that should have been the time where you pulled the trigger. There was just not much to build off. So you kind of flush this game and hope that the better version of Dallas shows up. Micah Parsons also was kind of limping on and off the field throughout this game. He seemed to be banged up. Not a good day for the Dallas Cowboys.
Maybe the whole scoreboard watching and being distracted and knowing that the game probably didn't matter. Maybe that's a factor.
Just be tougher, Dallas.
You've heard about players talk about that, but they averaged 2.8 yards per play. They had 10 first downs. This is one of the worst offensive performances all season. That's crazy.
Doesn't this feel?
This is an outlier.
Yeah, you're going to play a team that's not very good next week in Tampa, but they're not terrible, and they're going to be home, and they have Tom Brady. It's like this all feels like it's building towards something with the Cowboys.
I agree.
We'll see.
I wonder if
I'll just say this: we're nobody's underdog.
And he won't be.
We wouldn't have said that
to win.
They're
we wouldn't have said
3-point
that
favorites.
3 weeks ago, though. I
They're
think it's
3-point
just,
favorites. You've told us though that the Bucs are winning that game.
I have mentioned that
You've
on the
said
show.
that?
I said whoever won
You're
that
on
division
the record.
multiple times.
Okay.
Multiple times.
I do want to mention that Dan Snyder was reportedly not at this game, which is strange for the owner's habits. According to The Athletic, it could be his final game as owner. With that popping up, a spokesperson for Washington didn't want to comment on it, but it was reported by The Athletic.
Which is commenting on it in a way.
Maybe this win by Rivera and the ownership situation, maybe that helps him stay. The exact same thing.
Tell me how that sausage is made, Mark.
You know what I'm saying? Like, we can't clarify where he was or what's going on there. It's just like, all right, just hanging out there.
I just want to know where Tully the pig was. I don't care about anything else.
I think that pig probably knows he has probably a 2-game run if there's an ownership change here and a lot of other changes, and he's
half man, half pig. It's a monster.
Make the most of it.
Greg, you were cut off there. I'm sure you were about to make a trenchant point.
No, it was just what Rivera must be thinking, which is like, this is happening again? I guess I'm going to keep my job because they're not going to fire me right before they leave. But this happened with Jerry Richardson in Carolina. He had that job, and then the new owner came in. They gave him 1 year. And
if I was Ron, I'd get my wife and maybe some kids and a couple grandkids, get out of Dodge, and just lay low and hope they just kind of forget about me while they're trying to figure out everything else.
That's a good move.
That's just a pro tip for Ron Rivera. Let's move on. Other playoff NFC seeding implications. To the Bay Area we go. The Big Bell Bottom.
Now they're going to play action, and Purdy going to throw, and it is caught by George Kittle again. Give him 11 on the year, 2 today.
How about that?
George Kittle!
The rubber band man is catching the rock for touchdowns this year. In this one, he rips away from Camus Grugier Hill.
The rubber band man?
I think someone's up on the old Haight Ashbury before the game here.
Yeah.
What's going on with some of these radio broadcasts?
Hey, Danny, it sounds like he's blowing a bone.
Bingo.
The rubber band man. A guy who we talked about him on the podcast like midway through the season. Like, Kittle is not really Kittle anymore. And maybe he's not the same guy he was anymore. But he became a touchdown machine in the second half. And that's yet another reason to feel very good about San Francisco. who go into the playoffs on a long winning streak, lock down the number 2 seed with a 38-13 win over a team that is technically the Cardinals. So San Francisco, yes, 13-4, long winning streak. That they don't get the bye anymore with the new rules in effect, but they will play at least one home game. And if something goes crazy with the number 1 seed Eagles, maybe the whole way through the NFC. We shall see.
I think it's huge they get Elijah Mitchell back today. He's barely played all season. And then you get Deebo Samuel back, and you didn't have to use Christian McCaffrey too much. It was the ideal way for a team that did have to win, but they didn't want to expend all the energy in the world. They also didn't want to sweat it out. Like, this was the opposite of what the Eagles did, certainly what the Cowboys did or the Chargers. This was perfect, and they've given every confidence to believe they're one of the best teams. I know Danny's power rankings believe so. They
will be the number 1 team going into the playoffs or whatever. I mean, I like the Bills. I love the Bengals. I love the Chiefs. But I think San Francisco just feels like a runaway train. At least they have the clearest path to the Super Bowl of any team. Now, are we all in agreement on that? Like,
absolutely.
To get to the Super Bowl.
No, I disagree with that.
What's the doubt? What's the doubt here with the Niners?
Time out. Yeah. You think what team has a clearer path in San Francisco? That's a very...
The Eagles, I guess. The two of them are equal. To me, if the 49ers are in Philly, I consider the Eagles like a slight favorite. Not much, but slight. Yeah, but at best, it's a coin flip.
I'm not worried about the Niners playing an extra game. When it starts with Seattle, they've matched up really well with them both times. And this game, you look at the score and you think just another like absolute drubbing. And ultimately, it was down the stretch, but this game was 14-13 with just a couple seconds to go in the first half. And there was a stretch where, for the first time in a while, the Niners just went to sleep on offense, 3 straight punts, and Purdy couldn't generate anything. And yet they climbed their way out of it. This was like not one of their finer performances. And by the end, they absolutely destroyed Arizona. It's like, I don't see another team doing this right now in the NFC. So I tend to agree with Dan that, like, with where the Eagles are right now, the Niners to me are just, if you're going to get Deebo back, you're going to get Mitchell back. Purdy has not proven to be anything but completely legitimate. He's outplayed Jimmy G, and he fits right in. And like he's worked so well with guys like Kittle and Brandon Ayuk that I don't understand who really would be favored over him at this point. I know maybe Philly, but other than that, I think they're the best team in the NFC. And the one thing we should note is this was J.J. Watt's final game. I tend to believe that we're going to come September, there's going to be J.J. Watt unretiring. But I'm not trying to undo his decision or anything, but just
is there a part of you that thinks you could attempt to?
Not in the least, but just I'm respecting his decision.
Like if you were a little stronger with your point, he might listen to Sessler and be like, well, he's got a point.
No, I'm not trying to make him come back. I think that you're looking at someone that's playing about as well as he has in ages. He had 12.5 sacks and led the team in pressure rate and everything. J.J. Watt is not falling off a shelf.
3-time Defensive Player of the Year. He had 120.5 sacks in the regular season and playoffs in his 12-year career. Here's something from J.J. Watt after the game. I said I wanted to go out playing good ball, and I'm playing good ball. I know I still can. I just choose not to. That's all. A great career. Is he?
Yeah.
If we were, we just finished our 10th regular season of Around the NFL here at NFL.com. NFL Media. You get it. Is he the peak J.J. Watt, the best defensive player?
Yeah.
Him.
That we ever saw?
I'd say yes, by a tick over Aaron
Some people
Donald.
will say Donald, but Watt at his peak was just...
So we're talking about like the impact on our show. I think like J.J. Watt just was something that many people hadn't even seen. Yeah.
Supernova, bro. Good call. And the Purdy thing, it's almost, I feel like, Greggy, it's a little under the radar now, or it doesn't get enough, like the fact that this guy that was the last pick in the draft is coming and is having a kind of a big year for them. If you look at his numbers, I know he's not at the level of those great AFC quarterbacks or Jalen Hurts when he's healthy, but he ended up with 13 touchdowns against, I think, 3 picks. His passer rating was about 110 or so. I mean, and that a lot of credit to the personnel and the coaching staff. But that is this season. We talked about when Garoppolo went out. It was like, is it kind of over for San Francisco? And it kind of seemed like it was. It is not over. And Purdy's rise has been a big part of that.
No, they got better. I mean, today was a perfect example of a Purdy game. 5 incompletions, 3 touchdowns, and almost 9 yards per attempt. It's crazy. My pushback with calling the Eagles, certainly I think a coin flip, if not better, if they're home, is just looking at the 2 rosters. They're both loaded. Looking at the 2 quarterbacks, I'll take Philly. And I do look at the teams that San Francisco's played. It's not their fault. They played one really good, defense that was playing well at the time down the stretch. That was when they beat the Saints 13-0. That was a weird game. They were coming off the Mexico game, and that was supposedly a thing. But they were just playing a lot of teams that didn't really get in their way too much. And maybe Minnesota won't either if that's the first matchup after Seattle. That sets up as well as possible for them to roll into that NFC Championship without playing an overly good defense.
They just haven't lost since October 23rd, and I don't see a weakness.
Yep.
10-game winning streak as the Niners hit the postseason with Seattle Seahawks coming into their building.
Well, no, Purdy did
week.
outduel David Blau, by the way. Blau did all he could.
Looking for that newsletter. That's tough for you to have to write the newsletter after you leave here.
You got to turn that around.
It's a long day.
I don't even, you sleep for maybe 3 or 4 hours during this time of year, and you just keep going.
Sure. That's the sacrifices we make. All right, boys, let's take a break, and then we'll hit the rest of the NFC and then move on to the AFC. All right, let's finish out these NFC games with a trip to Soldier Field, where the Vikings and Bears did battle with nothing on the line. Well, something.
Cousins under center, play action, straight drop, pass to the end zone, caught, touchdown, Adam Thielen. Kirk Cousins throws a touchdown to Adam Thielen, and for Kirk, it's his 29th touchdown this season. For Adam Thielen, it's his 6th receiving touchdown.
And that's where those men would end in terms of their statistical output in the regular season, because Kevin O'Connell pulled many of his starters at the half. Game in hand, a game that didn't mean anything to the Vikings, who were locked in their playoff spot. They win 29-13 over the Bears. Well, I shouldn't say that. There was things on the line for the Minnesota Vikings. If things broke a certain way, they didn't. So they are where they are, and they'll get the Giants next week. Now, Adam Thielen had the touchdown. Otherwise, kind of a ho-hum game, and the Chicago Bears, with the loss, in addition to the win of the Texans, have the number 1 overall pick in the NFL draft. 10-game losing streaks have never felt so good in Chicago.
Yeah, because you're so right. It's a season where wins and losses, you kind of can put it aside as a Bears fan, because you got the number 1 pick. You already have a quarterback. You don't want to waste too many more years on his rookie contract, but you also go into the offseason with a monstrously large amount of cap space over any other team. The Falcons are second, and it doesn't mean you go spend it all, but it's like you have a lot of flexibility, and I think you can sell a lot of free agents on Justin Fields and what you're building, which is a far way. We were not here in the summer. We were killing this entire organization for essentially about to be putting Justin Fields out there with nothing around him, and instead, look at it. Turned out pretty well, and you have a guy that is someone different than we thought of a number of months ago.
Still don't know if they have a coach. The defense was bad. They did trade the number 32 pick in the draft for Chase Claypool, which looks like a fiasco.
That was a weird one.
That not looking great. They started Nathan Peterman in a football game in the year 2023. So I can't give him too many flowers, but they did get some breaks. And George McCaskey, the owner rather, was seen toting around a Yeti cooler today after the game, full of ice cream bars, and giving them out to people. So that's kind of a shout out to the old times in the old Papa Bear. That's what he did at the end of the season.
Is that true?
Nice season. Here's an ice cream bar.
Oh, I was hoping you were telling the truth, not joking, because otherwise that's kind of a eccentric move.
That is the truth.
All right, well there you go. Well, there was reason to celebrate for the Bears, and you figure that will be a draft pick for sale unless they absolutely fall in love with someone who is not a quarterback. But this is a type, if they handle this right and they have their management set up right and their draft scouts set up right, they could turn this haul into something that changes their organization and makes them a contender in the NFC next year. They're in a unique situation.
One little thing with the Vikings, because you came out of last week's disaster and no one believes them, I get it. But Cousins going 17 for 20, I saw him throwing some heaters to like KJ Osborne and stuff. It seemed like he looked pretty good today.
This is how you do it, Staley. Yeah. You rack up 482 yards of offense, 28 first downs, and you sit everyone by halftime.
I'm not going to try to revive your excitement about the Vikings.
No, it was just like this is like several of the Week 18 games. These teams that were just like
they had
let's
the
get
scoreboard
through
watch.
this.
So they were watching the Eagles score and the 49ers score, I believe. And then once they saw that, or the 49ers score rather, and once they saw that, they said bye-bye.
And we're going to get obviously to the playoff implications or the games in the upcoming week. But put it this way, Vikings fans, especially Vikings fans that get annoyed at me on Twitter, you did go 13-4. You got at least one home game, and you could say in a serious manner inside that locker room, no one believes in us. So maybe you could take that and do something with it.
That's true.
We'll see. All right, let's
give it to us.
Let's move to Atlanta, where the Bucs and Falcons did battle in a low-stakes affair.
Zacchaeus in motion from right to left. Here's Ritter looking, shoots it end zone. I mean, wide
there
open.
It is.
Olamide Zacchaeus for the Atlanta touchdown.
That's it. I think that's the first Desmond Ritter touchdown pass.
It was, and then he threw another.
Oh, it's hope season in Atlanta for the Falcons, who end their season in a positive manner with a 30-17 win over the Bucs. So the Bucs clinched the NFC South last week by virtue. I always like that. By virtue of their victory over the Panthers. So they'll host a playoff game against the Cowboys next week, Mark. But they also finished 8-9 on the season. By the way, the first ever losing season in Tom Brady's career.
Yeah, and he started this game, and they yanked him before halftime, and Blaine Gabbert came in and was eventually replaced by Kyle Trask. There was no Mike Evans in this game. Tristan Wirfs was essentially not on the field. Tom Brady, though, looked like for a bit furious when they yanked him. I think because of what you just mentioned, it's like Tom Brady is not built to sit on the sideline and watch the formation and the birth of his first losing season.
Whatever, he had plenty of time to have a winning season this year.
No doubt. But, I mean, just in this situation, he was annoyed. But what happened was then the game started to tilt in Atlanta's favor. And I think that, I don't want to overhype the Falcons. They've got a lot to figure out. But, again, they're the second most cap room in the league. I don't know if you have a quarterback in Desmond Ritter, but I thought he played his best game by far today. And you do have a wide receiver in Drake London. You do have a really interesting running back in Tyler Algier who crossed 1,000 yards. I mean, it's like
your guy.
You're young. They're young. They have
not
some
a crazy
young
offensive rookie of the year candidate himself, Tyler Algier.
No, because I think there's a thin pool there. But he's also been a huge
Ted Becker
asset
might want to get him back on the horn. I hope he's feeling better. Ted, by the way.
I think he should.
Tyler Algier is officially your guy.
Well,
he's gotten the flu. I think he said he got the flu 3 times.
It's like a seasonal thing for him. He's
overworked.
Need the sun to come back out. But no, I think there's some things to build around in Atlanta. Ritter, I mean, I don't know. At least they didn't wait and not have him play. Like the whole thing that happened with Mariota is weird, but like they needed to see Ritter. I don't think it prevents you from making other moves at that position necessarily.
Bucs were tied when Brady left this game. That's probably partly why Brady was annoyed.
Right,
he's out there like scoring 10 points on 5 possessions. It's not like they were dominating. Gabbert came in and they got like a turnover to take the lead for a minute, and then they didn't score.
Speaking of guys who are still hanging around, Blaine Gabbert. What's up, bud?
Yeah.
Looking handsome, Blaine Gabbert.
I mean, that was never the problem with Blaine Gabbert.
No, but he had like that. Like he's got
Blaine Gabbert's kind of a beautiful man.
He's also just got a perfect haircut for him at this stage in his life right now.
Right.
He's also a hero. We talked about that on the show, didn't we? Him and his 3 brothers saved some people from drowning.
I saw that.
It's nice.
I saw that. It was
a nice thing to do.
And you know who else did the same thing? Our old friend Peyton Hillis, former Browns rusher, who unfortunately, it put him in the hospital, but he saved some children in the sea.
His own
children. And we hope the best for Peyton Hillis and his recovery on that end. All right, let's move to New Orleans. Let's see, Gregg went. Oh, they had a bunch of people from the University of Georgia.
Yeah, well,
in this building,
alumni, right?
Right before we started the show today, and it was a party. We got Georgia playing TCU for the national championship on Monday across the sidewalk.
This is part of probably the package they paid for to come. And part of the job is, and this is not a critique of the company.
Right.
It's very nice to do these tours, but where we each sit, which is against a very long glass wall with the big hallway, where anyone being kind of taken through dog and pony through the building is standing there. Always they just gather and stare at us. And I face them directly, where if I'm sitting there eating a piece of pizza.
It's kind of perfect.
It's happened
if
like 5 times a day.
There's one person to put in that spot, it would be Marc.
I have the worst seat in the entire building.
And they're crowding up the glass, pointing at us. Look at all these Yankees.
And
they're working on a Sunday. That's not against the God's
code. It was
code.
absurd. They're looking at what I'm looking at online. I don't need that. It's fine. It's just work stuff. But it's I'm not a here for your observation. Right. But yes, I am.
Marc brings this up, I would say 2-3 times a week, and I never get tired of hearing about it.
Because they have these tours 2 or 3 times a week.
It exasperates him anew every time.
Or it's like a middle school football team coming through. I'm glad that they're here, but it's like they're staring at me. I didn't. It's 8 a.m. I don't want to be looked at.
I was oh, tarnation! I got the vapors looking at this big facility. Go Georgia!
Well, they came right past the studio here.
Gregg's shaking his head. He's like, I actually, went to school in the South. I know what Southern culture is, but I've watched a lot of TV, Greg.
No, you're plugged in.
I know what true Southern culture is. I got the vapors. All right, let's go.
That's how they all spoke.
Well, we got anything else?
The Saints.
Oh, yeah. Did we play the highlight?
42-yarder for the win. J.J. Jansen to snap.
It's been a long
Hecker puts
season.
it down. Pinheiro swings the leg. The kick is up. It is good. Eddie Pinheiro wins it for Carolina to end the season in New Orleans.
There you go, Gregg. Eddie Pinheiro with the kick at the gun. Sam Darnold leads the Panthers.
Wait a
minute. Gregg, to a 10-7 win over the Saints at the Superdome. Both teams finished 7-10. That's perfect.
It's not how you start, Danny. It's how you finish. That's the story of Sam Darnold's career. Yes, he only finished 5 of 15 for 43 yards and 2 interceptions, a quarterback rating of 2.8.
What? Woof.
But it was Sam Darnold who ran for a first down and then connected with Terrace Marshall for 21 yards
there you go.
On that final drive. And you know what that did? That saved me from watching overtime of this dreadful game.
Well, then it did a huge favor to all of America and beyond.
So, yeah, the big storylines here. That winning streak for the Saints ends at 3 games. We'll see what Dennis Allen's future is. Steve Wilks the same as well. A lot of coach questions after the season ends for both teams.
Jim Trotter, our NFL Network reporter, was very curious why David Tepper, the owner of the Panthers, wasn't at this game, kind of talking about what Steve Wilks' chances are to keep that job or not. There's been, confirmation that Tepper and Jim Harbaugh spoke about the job, about the head coaching job. Wilks did finish 6-6, and this was kind of a game why I like Steve Wilks as a head coach more than Dennis Allen. There was no business for the Saints to win this game. They could not have lose this game rather. Could not have dominated it anymore for the first 2.5 quarters, but Saints just kept making dumb mistakes, and the Panthers came out of halftime at least trying their best.
To the point you were saying about Harbaugh, in kind of awkward news reporting from Jonathan Jones of
CBS.
NFL on CBS. He tweeted this morning, the Panthers spoke with Jim Harbaugh recently, but only after a good deal of persistence on Harbaugh's side, Carolina plans to focus its efforts elsewhere. So whatever Jim is telling Michigan and their alumni about, I'm not looking to leave. According to the CBS reporting here, he was very thirsty for the Panthers to take him seriously as a candidate, and yet they have not.
He did this a year ago and got a raise. So I think it's, with those college coaching contracts, maybe just turn that into more money.
Well done. Who are the? Did Georgia defeat Michigan in the semifinal?
They did. They ended Harbaugh's season.
We wouldn't be talking
Georgia,
about Harbaugh.
Michigan lost to TCU.
I don't follow the college game.
I literally have watched 4 minutes of college football season, so.
I did watch that Michigan game. I kind of like Harbaugh, but I liked seeing him in pain, too. So it was a fun game.
All those Yankees watching football on Sunday. I like it on Saturday.
It's not even a sport to them.
Drew's a big Michigan fan back here. He was pretty devastated that TCU beat them.
9'7", Drew. Drew, any comments?
Yeah, good luck with that.
All right, there you go. So that's the NFC. Now let's move to the AFC and that playoff picture, starting where we have to, of course, in Western New York after the, really horrifying incident that happens Monday night in Cincinnati that leads to all sorts of different changes and throws everything up in the air in terms of the playoffs and how the seedings will be handled. Well, the Bills still had to take care of business, go back on the field, and try to get back to being a Super Bowl team. And the good news, of course, by the way, Damar Hamlin continues to make progress in contact with his team now, speaking, tweeting. It couldn't be better. All of his mental functions are totally there. Tremendous news compared to what it was like even 72 hours ago. So great news. So now the Buffalo Bills, filled with hope and spirit, look to finish off their regular season schedule and get the Patriots out of the playoffs to Orchard Park.
Folk puts his foot into the ball. It's going to be short. Fielded at the 4 by Hines. Coming straight up the middle to the 20. Cuts it back at the 25. He's got an alley down the right sideline to the 40. 50. Down to the 40. 35. 30. 20. 15. 10. 5. Touchdown. Nyheim Hines. 96 yards. Run as fast as you can. You're not catching Hines. He's your end zone man. Buffalo on the board with the first play from scrimmage.
You can't make it up. You cannot make it up. Well, you know what? Sequel. That's not even it. Hit it.
Nick Folk kicking it off now. Hines takes it a yard deep in the end zone, going to bring it out. Out to the 10, to the 15, up over the 20, 25, 30, gets away from the tackler, 35, 40, 45, 50. They're not going to get him. He's going for another one. 102 yards.
And there was a third one. No, just kidding. It was just, quote unquote, 2 kickoff returns for touchdown from Nyheim Hines, including, obviously, the first play since everything that went down Monday night in Cincinnati. Damar Hamlin himself tweeted out in the moment after the opening kickoff, OMFG. If you don't know what that means, look it up. It was those 2 kickoff returns by Hines that were really the difference for the Bills, who did not have their A game defensively, but the special teams excellence combined with some Josh Allen magic was enough for a 35-23 win over the Patriots. Patriots go home, eliminated with a loss, and the Bills, Marc Sessler, finished 13-3, which isn't good enough to win the AFC number 1 seed, but what a hell of a way to kind of get back on the field after everything that transpired in the last week.
And no team in the league has been through more, and it happened obviously instantaneously at the start of all these games, and I was sitting with Gregg, and I just thought to myself and said out loud, like, how on earth can a game start this way? And I just think the one thing that is, this whole journey that we've been on over the past week, that the Bills have been on, that every one of those players and players around the league, I just got the sense that someone was kind of chosen amongst all of this to send a message right away that things were going to be all right for this Bills team. And Nyheim Hines, who they traded for, who's been a bit player his whole career, always heard about, we want to get Hines more involved in the Colts offense back in the day. And the Bills got him for a certain reason. And now it's like the reason and the role he's played is utterly irreplaceable in Bills history forever. It's just a very special thing where sometimes the way sports work, it's like the least obvious character is just pulled out of the fray and chosen to do something that leaves an indelible mark, and that's what happened today.
Let's hear from Josh Allen, who, like you, Marc, you put it very well there. It almost felt like there was more at play the way this game started and really the entire tone in Western New York today.
I can't remember a play that touched me like that, I don't think, in my life. So it's probably number 1.
How about the second one?
It was just spiritual, and I was going around, and I was going around my team saying, God's real. Like, you can't draw that one up, write that one up any better. And I was just told by Kevin Kearns, it's been 3 years and 3 months. Since the last kickoff return, so it's pretty cool.
Gregg, Damar Hamlin, of course, number 3. He wears for the Bills, and 3 was everywhere across the NFL, including on the hats of all the Bills players.
I thought of Steve Gleason's punt return block for the Saints immediately. And totally different situations, of course, in many different ways. But a play that when I saw it, you knew how special it was. Now we're almost 20 years. We're 20 years later, and we still talk about that play. And when this kickoff return happened, I just thought, we're going to be talking about this play in 20 years too. And I
build a statue in Western New York.
You got to.
Two
of them.
And the thing is, I think it's really important for the Bills football team in their quest to go win a Super Bowl, which is part of this whole conversation that we're going to have about them moving forward. To have that moment here today, to then play the rest of this game out, a game in which they were in trouble and trailing at one point in the second half, and kind of get through today and get that win and set up that we don't have to have a Bills-Chiefs AFC championship, or if we have a Bills-Chiefs AFC championship, that's going to be at a neutral site. And I think not that they're going to put anything past what happened with Damar Hamlin. Look, they were FaceTiming with him, and he's now going to be a presence, I think, in their lives and talking. But he's getting better and better every week. And I think to be able to handle the emotions as a football team of like, okay, this all happened, and then you got to go play a game, and it didn't really go that well for a lot of the game, but then to come out on top in the end and then start now to look forward to what their playoff matchup's going to be. I also think that's big, just for everyone to start to move forward of what they're going to do and attack the rest of the season.
It was an example of it was another game where Josh Allen, up until he started to make some big throws down the stretch, their offense has looked somewhat suspect in recent weeks. Stephon Diggs had a big catch that maybe uncorked him. I thought, where is Stephon Diggs 3/4 of this game?
That was one of those Josh Allen throws that maybe nobody else can throw.
But I also feel like the particulars of this game, just what you were just saying, Greg, this is a bit of a fugazi week 18 for a lot of different teams for a lot of different reasons. The Bills just needed to survive and have this happen in front of their fans at home. And for that reason, I think it's a very special kind of checkpoint for them, and had to happen the way it did today.
Yeah, and Tony Romo calling the game with Nance. And they also had great calls of those two plays. We heard from Bills radio there, but obviously that was some special stuff. Romo said, and Romo's, he knows quarterbacks like nobody else. I keep thinking about he knew before anyone else. He's like, oh, Mike White he's not just injured, he has multiple broken ribs.
Yeah.
And then we find out weeks later he's got 5 broken ribs. He's watching Josh Allen the last few weeks and saying he's not the same. He's not the same. He's not throwing it the same way. And he said today, like in the last 10 days is the number he put on it. He sees Allen throwing the ball now the way he did before the elbow injury back in October. And that throw to Diggs was the type of throw. I was like, oh, okay. All right. So that's important for the Bills, obviously, that you get peak Allen. He did have another red zone turnover, which has been an issue all season. But, man, you try not to put too much into it and the mystical stuff and everything like that. Although I respect, Josh Allen bringing the spirituality into it. Man, are the Bills going to get stopped this year? You just feel like there's something really magical brewing with this season and this organization that's waited so long to get to the mountaintop. And on the New England side of things, because we should cover the Pats because their season's over, really I got to give them credit, to be honest with you. It was sloppy, and that's going to be something we remember about this season. Uncharacteristic miscues. They had obviously the 2 massive special teams gaffes. Mac Jones threw a bunch of picks late in the game and won when the game was very much in the balance in the red zone himself. But after giving up that kickoff return to start the game, their ability to calm things down in that building, get to halftime at 14-14, take the lead before their special teams blew it for them again. Greg, a very uncharacteristic New England season, a frustrating way for it to end, but kind of on brand in a lot of ways, the way it all played out.
Right. They, to me, are a different team, obviously, since Brady's been gone. And they've been this was a very characteristic season, to me, of the last 3. They've been a consistent.
At this level, though, the sloppiness, like at this level, this felt like a little beyond the pale for them.
Also, quarterback melting down on the sideline on a weekly basis. It's a little on edge.
They were sloppy in a different way, absolutely. Offensively, I think they were one of the most poorly coached sides of the football I've ever seen out of the Patriots. But just in terms of being like kind of a middle-of-the-road team that does find ways to lose games, that often does have mental mistakes. This time it was special teams, so you just kind of don't know which side is going to pop up here. Their defense was playing much better at the end of this season than they had the last couple of years, certainly compared to last year. I think the defense would have been ready to go on a long playoff run if they had a good offense overall, and they showed something there today. But it was a bit of a end of an era here, I think, too. That was, I think, the last we're going to see of Devin McCourty. It really looks like he's
2
retiring.
turnovers he had in potentially his last game.
And Matthew Slater as well. So as a Patriots fan, Slater, it's hard to see him go out on this special teams guy. Maybe if there ever was a special teams Hall of Famer, he would be it. I don't think he'll get in with that. But he says he was shell-shocked after the games. It sounds like that'll be it for him and McCourty.
It has got to agitate Bill Belichick to no end that they came into this game with the 29th ranked weighted DVOA special teams unit. So I'm sure it dipped. It couldn't go much lower, but it obviously did. And Bill Belichick is the coach we think of who on these Friday press conferences will go on a 14-minute long soliloquy about special teams play when everyone else mostly ignores it. So this was there are elements of this that feel un-Belichickian. I think there's obviously going to be a change on the offensive coaching staff. If you want to keep Mac Jones around, which at this point, I said last week that I'm not sure I would assume that would happen, but what other options do you have? It's like get a better off OC in there, and I think you can get Mac Jones back on track.
I think it would be a mistake to make a rash decision at the quarterback. We're going to get into that, but I thought at one point in this game, just give you an example, Mac Jones and the evaluation is tough because things were so messy in New England. One point in this game, he was in their 3 touchdown drives, their first 3 touchdown drives, he was 17 for 17 for 170 yards and 3 touchdowns. Like there's a potentially a decent to good quarterback there. And I don't know if you kick him out the door after this season. And we'll see, Gregg. I know you've been, talking a little bit about what happens with Belichick if he's getting pressure from upstairs about how the changes need to be made. We know changes need to be made in New England.
I think it'll be radio silence for a while, but I still wouldn't. I'm very curious to see what the outcome is of what Bill Belichick does.
That all-time wins record is in, target. It's a target.
He'll get it with another team if he wants to.
I guess. I feel that'd be strange to throw him somewhere else, but.
And as we said at the top of the show, it will be the Miami Dolphins traveling to Buffalo in the wild card playoffs next week. Let's move to another team that's dancing, the Miami Dolphins. Hey, sometimes the dance isn't pretty. Sometimes it's an ugly dance, but it's all right. You're dancing nonetheless. Dance like no one's watching? Is that the thing?
It's always an ugly dance if I'm involved personally.
Right. I can think of some nights at the Lost and Found where we'd probably dance not looking too pretty.
All right. Okay, let's get to the game.
A win here and a Bills win would give the Dolphins the playoffs. It's up, and it is good!
Wow, biggest kick of the year for Jason Sanders, and he comes through.
With 18 seconds left, the Dolphins lead at 9-6.
What a big kick for Jason Sanders. Wow.
It was a big kick for Jason Sanders in a game that was all kicking. It was a game that had 5 field goals, and that's it. I tweeted, that community Donald Glover scene that's become kind of an iconic gif where he swings the apartment door open with the pizzas with a big smile on his face, and all of a sudden, since he's been gone to pick up the pizza, the entire apartment is destroyed. Someone's been shot on the floor. There's a fire. That's how I imagine Jets and Dolphins fans if you were locked away around, let's say, Thanksgiving, and then you saw what was going on today in Week 18. Really gnarly stuff. But the Dolphins, credit them for getting it done with their third-string quarterback. They find a way 9-6. Their defense becomes the latest defense to shut down a moribund New York attack. And the 5-game losing streak for the Dolphins is gone. They finish over 500. They calm things down. And, yes, like I said, they'll be playing the Bills next week. So, listen, sometimes the dance is ugly, but you get into the dance anyway.
I was texted during this game with our friend Henry Hodgson, and we were talking about it feels like a preseason game, and he seemed ambivalent over whether his beloved Dolphins would make the playoffs or not. The crowd felt a little ambivalent. They tried to get going at points today, and it was crazy because this game meant so much. I was thinking the Patriots will probably lose, so this is essentially a playoff game. The whole season's been leading to this. But meanwhile, on one TV, it's like you see the Bills game, and it's like, wow, sports can be so crazy, almost impossibly powerful in strange moments in a game like that. And then you can be watching Skylar Thompson and Joe Flacco and trading field goals and everyone trying to convince themselves this matters.
And you know what? In Week 18, as is the way, or Week 17 in past years, you'll have a bunch of games that kind of feel like dog games because guys are already thinking about their trip to Cancun next week. That wasn't the case here. You could tell on both sides of the ball the teams were putting in effort.
Sure.
There was just a real struggle to move the football in any type of efficient way. And, of course, these teams are both so beat up, both sides were, including at the quarterback position, that this isn't totally stunning.
Bad O-lines, bad quarterback play.
Yep, those two things, to the Dolphins' credit, one of the differences in the game, other than a huge Quincy Williams horse collar tackle that kind of pushed Miami into field goal range before the kick was made, was their ability to run the ball. They were the only team that could actually do something, which is rush the ball. Neither team could throw. And Mark, like I talked about it back in, it was probably week 5 when the Jets lost Breece Hall and Elijah Vera Tucker on the same day, and I was devastated that day. And it turns out that Breece Hall, who played 5 games this year, was the Jets' leading rusher. So while there's been a lot of focus at quarterback and the dysfunction there, that tells the story of an offense that completely melted down, and I think it's probably going to cost their offensive coordinator his job.
Yeah, it's interesting because this, of course, is a Shanahan-esque offense where we're so used to, over the years, pre-Christian McCaffrey, watching Shanahan dial up 7 different running backs over the course of a year, floods of injuries, and it really wouldn't matter. They'd still get to 160 yards a game, and it was the scheme, it was the system. And the Jets, on a day like today, and really since Breece Hall went down, they had 38 yards at 1.9 yards per carry today. It's like you can't – it's not just the quarterback. You got to find a way to surround good and bad quarterbacks, wanting underhand quarterbacks that are not really skilled to get you to the playoffs with something, and they couldn't do that. And, I mean, the Jets' offense really fell asleep, and I think the Dolphins look so different to us because I don't really view Tua as a – I think his numbers are better than who he is. That's just how I feel about him.
Next week? Do we think?
Well, we don't know. He's still in
Based on
protocol.
the post-press conference, it didn't sound like McDaniel had a ton of optimism. Now, Teddy Bridgewater, who was active for this game, I think would make a big difference because Skylar Thompson was skittish and a problem. Not a big difference like you'll go win in Buffalo, but
sure.
But a big difference where you won't be the offense that you saw today because Thompson was a problem. The offensive lines were problems, but Thompson had much better protection in general than Joe Flacco, who got hit, I think, 10 times and was kind of fighting for his life out there. That maybe a veteran quarterback could give them some chance here because Thompson threw the ball 31 times here for 152 yards.
Teddy Bridgewater
off and on the field.
Stay in the game. I mean,
right.
I'm not going to blame him for injuries, but his 2 starts he didn't even get through, and I think that's been
an issue as well.
The one thing I'd say about Mike McDaniel. Yes, they faded hard, and it's not been impressive. Their offense today just looked completely like a different offense. But Mike McDaniel, without a lot of drama, has found a way to get here in year 1 with the Dolphins with about as much, revolving door quarterback madness as you could ask for outside of the Jets.
He also went for 2 4th and 5s in this game from close to midfield, which I was surprised, including on the opening drive. Surprised he did with Skylar Thompson. 1 didn't work. Wasn't worried about Flacco taking advantage. 1 did, and then ended up leading to 3 points. So he was aggressive to the end. The Jets finished the season with 33 straight drives without a touchdown, but at least you got Garrett Wilson, who I think would be my pick for Rookie of the Year, just eye test wise. And in a year where there wasn't any huge obvious numbers, guys, I think he just looks to me like the best player. And he was 9 for 89 today. Flacco smartly just tried to throw it to him every single play.
They have an obvious to do in the offseason. You've just got to figure out this quarterback thing because you finally got a really strong roster.
I think he's a true number 1 wide receiver. Garrett Wilson will only get better, and it was notable, Greggy. We'll see. Black Monday's coming up. Sorry, New Horizons Monday is coming up, and we'll see how everything plays out in the league. But Salah's probably safe, but just his comments, he would not kind of endorse LaFleur after the game, makes you think he's willing or knows he might have to sacrifice a guy that he probably doesn't want to get rid of for his own safety at this point. That's what 6-game losing streaks do. And that's a sad way for the Jets season that was otherwise filled with hope a couple of weeks back to end.
You know what? I hate this stuff, though, because I'm not convinced that LaFleur can't do it.
Agree.
He's been around with his brother and everyone else. It's like you went through so much. Like you were tagged to play a non-functional high draft pick who doesn't have it, and we all know that now. They didn't know that 3 months ago. And it's like, are we going to –
Part of his
do
job
we always
is
need a
to
fall guy, though?
To develop, and I think they failed on some level as well. I kind of agree with you.
But they didn't
just
fail
saying,
to develop Breece Hall or Garrett Wilson or other young players on both sides of the ball.
This has been the story of the
guys
Jets
were open.
for 40, 50 years. It's
but
the
they also
quarterback
just
that
picked
can.
the wrong guy. Like they picked the wrong dude.
Right.
You know.
Sure, but somebody's got to go, and that's what happens when you lose 6 straight games to end the season. And you could say no, but it's like that's kind of the way the owner probably wants somebody out. And Sal's going to be like, I don't want it to be me.
I don't think owners should be involved in this, but that's not how this works.
Right. All right. Just getting started here on the AFC. We'll be right back after this. All right, welcome back. By the way, did I mention that? I don't think I ever mentioned the final score. Dolphins 11, Jets 6. And for those like Scorigami guys out there.
Scorigami. I know that you detest the concept.
It was a safety on the final play after a 50-yarder from your boy Sanders.
It did trigger a scorigami, though, for those who care.
It did not.
Well, I saw that.
It happened one other time, and it was, I believe, in the NFC title game, Bucs-Rams.
Oh, well, there were reporting mistakes out there then, because that was reported all over
regular
the place.
Season.
The Burt Emanuel game. The Sean King almost went to the Super Bowl game.
That was a bizarre conference championship. All right, so it's a regular season scorigami, which has no meaning. It either is or it isn't.
It never has any meaning, I guess, is my overall viewpoint on scorigami.
I would say nothing has any meaning.
Well, that's another way to look at life.
Nothing at all has meaning if you want to be that nihilistic about anything.
Scorigami?
No, but like you're deciding that scorigami has no meaning.
You know what meant something?
To some people.
You know what meant a lot? Saturday night. Yeah. In Duval. Let's go.
Biggest play of the game right here. Shotgun for Dobbs. He drops. It's a blitz. An all-out blitz. They hit him as he lets it go. The ball comes out. The ball comes out and it's picked up. The Jags are running it back. The Jags are running it back. The Jags are going to run it into the end zone. Josh Allen scores a touchdown. Josh Allen has run it back for a touchdown for Jacksonville.
Oh, look. Wow, what a man.
That's integrity by
That's the measure of a man.
Yes, it is.
Or it's masochistic, and I'm into that too, you know?
They're both great.
They deserved it after week 14. I didn't give it to them. They get it now.
So you've grown.
That was one of the calls of the year. Put that on the calls of the year. He said this is the biggest play of the game. He didn't hesitate whether it was a fumble or not. That was great.
Yep.
The God of Bongo endorses your decision-making here. Here, it carries. Frank Frangie, WOKV, with the call. Yes, Josh Allen scoops up the fumble on the big hit on Joshua Dobbs. Takes it to the house. In a game that the Tennessee Titans, despite being beat up and missing their quarterback and benched their second stringer and brought in Dobbs, who hadn't been on the team but for a couple of weeks, they had the lead the whole game, but let it slip away with 2:51 to play in the fourth quarter. 20-16. The Jaguars are the AFC South champions. Calm down, Siri. Apple Watch malfunction. Apologies.
Modern day nightmare.
Yes. 2016, Jaguars win the South, and the Titans go home, Mark.
I was thinking about Gravedigger while watching this out on the town because it was like, man, Tennessee has been a tough watch for weeks on end. I don't see them as a playoff team. I think we got the better operation here. Well, but the better operation to go face the Chargers team. I like that matchup. But I fell for Gravedigger because this was like Mike Vrabel and crew doing everything they possibly could with a guy that's not been, who wasn't even on the roster a couple weeks ago at quarterback. I think Dobbs, it was smart what they did because Dobbs was the better option in this game. He's not perfect. We get that. But that turnover really was the turning point. I mean, the Jacksonville defense, because they didn't get a great look from Trevor Lawrence in the offense. It was not them at their high point. But the defense allowed 116 yards and 3 points in the second half. Jacksonville ran under 50 offensive plays from scrimmage the whole game. So to me, it showed that you can win different ways. You got just enough from Lawrence, but I think the better team won. And I feel bad for Titans fans, but I think this Jacksonville journey has really shown, as much as any team in the league, a team that started completely unsure of who they were at the beginning of the season. And under Doug Peterson, I don't want to overdo the culture thing because he took over the worst situation. And there was no way that a coach can come in and do a better job than what happened last year. But I think Doug Peterson deserves a lot of credit for also talking about development of a quarterback. Trevor Lawrence grew by leaps and bounds under his watch.
I hear you, and I'm glad the Jaguars are in. Much more excited to watch them. Their ceiling's way higher. Trevor Lawrence is fun to watch. But I felt like the Titans deserve that game.
Well, I mean, I'm not saying they don't.
I don't know about deserve. Deserve's a tricky word.
It deserves a tricky word. I think they outplayed them.
They could have won the game.
They outgained them by 90. They're playing with a backup quarterback here. Their defense in Jacksonville got it done. Like that Bear front where they're putting 5 guys up on the defensive line, and it's Trayvon Walker and Josh Allen, who might have had their 2 best games of the year, and Corey Peters, kind of a random free agent pickup, ends up dominating a Titans offensive line. That was the Titans' biggest problem all season. It popped up here. But Dobbs was balling out. I mean, Dobbs was going back and forth with Lawrence the whole game and was put in a tough spot and was doing great. They were kind of outplaying him, and the Jags offense got tight, didn't play well. The Titans were a defensive team and was holding them down. If Dobbs had seen that blitzer and just thrown that ball away, I'm not too confident the Jaguars offense was going to do anything there and win that game.
Graver, everything went wrong for the Titans over the final 2 months of the year. The only thing that really did go right, although it ended up, painfully falling short, was this Hail Mary that was Joshua Dobbs, because not only did he lose Tannehill to the ankle, then the draft pick, Malik Willis, is kind of a mess and not ready for the moment. He did make the season. You were able to at least go out with your dignity and your head held high, because he really did play well.
Yeah, I mean, he played a lot better than I think anyone could have hoped or expected. And on that last play, you wonder, why are you even running a straight drop back with no chip or running back help in the pass blocking scheme against a defensive front that has been dominating your backup offensive lineman all game with 4 minutes to go, and you've been running it okay. I mean, Henry's been popping 5 to 7 yard runs. You get a first down there with the run, and you potentially ice the game. You don't get the first down, you punt it, you pin Jacksonville deep.
It was aggressive, but they were aggressive with him throughout the night. He hit those 3rd and longs. They weren't running on 3rd and longs. He was hitting those throws against pressure. I agree with you. I was almost surprised how aggressive they were. But, man, if he had just seen that blitz.
Yeah, and the game plan, obviously, was we need Derrick Henry to take us there, and they gave him the ball 30 times on the ground. He went over 100 yards, but averaged about 3.5 yards a carry, Mark. So you didn't get that big-time Derrick Henry game where he had some nice, powerful runs, but he couldn't make the big play to kind of win them the game like he's done so many times in the past.
Had that stiff arm that just shows you that he's an impossible human being to deal with. But, yeah, they had the ball for almost 37 minutes, and I think it was let's keep the ball out of Jacksonville's hands so they don't get hot. And it can work only so long without a quarterback. And but Dobbs, I think, I don't know what – I think Dobbs has probably secured a clear-cut, high-end second, number 2 quarterback role a year from now, or a look to that degree. I think he's a good quarterback with he's smart. But this was Tennessee, another team where down the stretch you have total quarterback chaos, and it's just hard to take them that seriously.
Right. Jags fans, don't be annoyed if I'm dismissing this because the offense scored 13 points here. Lawrence still played absolutely perfect until missing Kirk on that open touchdown to start the third quarter. He was pitching a perfect game, didn't have anything to do with him. They're lights out. It's good that their defense is playing better. I almost felt like they got this out of the way. They almost knew they were supposed to win this. They were heavy favorites. They played a little tight. They got through it. I think they'll play better in the playoffs, and they'll be fun to watch. That place was rocking. I loved this game because they were hitting. It felt like a playoff game. It was so physical.
That's a good home field advantage they have there. It's kind of slept on a little bit. That fan base endured a lot of losing after that, that really special run in 2017. But it's been terrible since.
It was the biggest crowd in that stadium since they pulled the tarps off how many years ago.
Wow. It wasn't long ago those tarps were up.
They were hitting like crazy. It really felt like a playoff game. Almost every play just it was popping.
They were that way back in 2017 when this happened, but with Blake Bortles at quarterback. Now you have something where it's wait a minute, this could last for a while.
This is different. This is a different feel. And yes, they go out on a 5-game winning streak. The Titans, I believe, was 7?
7 straight. They scored more than 20 points on that losing streak one time.
Yeah. Man, these AFC teams are please pull us from the playoff race.
Exactly. So the Titans have a lot of work to do, and we'll see what happens with them next. And the Jaguars get the Chargers in their building as a division champion. How about that? Let's move on. Next stop.
3 tight ends, all tight
Vegas.
Triangle left side. Mahomes looks that way.
Vegas, baby.
Now moves to his left, holds the ball, holds it. Now he's going to shovel it late. He's got McKinnon. Touchdown! Kansas City on a basketball shovel pass straight ahead to the amazing Jerick McKinnon.
Well, I kind of think Patrick Mahomes is the amazing one, and Jerick McKinnon has done a nice job finding a niche in that offense and catching little miracle shovel passes like that. The other Saturday game was a easy 31-13 Kansas City win over the Raiders. With the win, because of the unusual, unprecedented circumstances in our league over the last 10 days, by winning percentage, by playing one more extra game, the Chiefs are the number 1 seed in the AFC and get the bye that comes with it. Of course, with the caveat, Greggy, that if the Chiefs and the Bengals were to meet in the AFC, Chiefs and the Bills, I should say, were to meet in the AFC title game, it would be on a neutral field, but the Chiefs, once again, the top seed in the AFC.
Yeah, I was thinking, how about Vegas for that game? Is that a possibility?
They'll just go to Indianapolis.
Indianapolis is busy. There's a volleyball tournament.
They'll get them out of there.
No, they've already told them they've rejected the NFL. I guess that was the NFL.
What if the Colts had made the AFC Championship game? What would have happened? When was this booked?
Well, no, they would have found a different. They wouldn't have gone in with that as a possible scenario. No,
they've known for a while. I don't know, but I do know that I believe Phil's daughter's been participating at that event.
So
for
the
years.
city of Indianapolis and Jim Irsay and the people of Lucas Oil Field
it's booked.
Said no, we don't want the AFC Championship game. We're going to be loyal to the volleyball sand people. Okay, I respect it. I'm just saying.
Well, I don't think
that is extremely loyal.
I do think it's safe to say there's no sand involved here. I think they're just
I think it's a beach volleyball staged inside the.
I don't know. Think about what this is. I don't know. Maybe. Do you guys know?
I mean, I know that volleyball's played indoors all over.
I don't think it's sand.
If you were in the Midwest,
they can open
where do you get a chance to play beach volleyball?
You don't live in the Midwest if you want to do that. You live
maybe
somewhere
there's
else.
a culture within the Midwest of people that have always dreamed.
Maybe by a lakeside in the summer, but not in January.
I'm just saying, if you take a backhoe and truck in some sand, you
asking,
could probably make a lot of dreams come true.
You're asking
in the
too much for just a Midwestern civilian.
We've paid no attention to
Call
this
me
game.
a nihilist. I'm a dreamer is what I am.
In this game, I was hoping this wouldn't be that good of a game because, I didn't want to give my whole weekend to the NFL. I thought I'll catch up to this at the end.
Oh, you liked how this started then, Greg.
And, yeah, this thing was what we thought it might be, which is the Chiefs walk
perfect,
to this.
Actually.
Vic, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I think the Chiefs have to feel good that they've been getting pass rush over the last month. Now, some of that could be opponent-related, but, man, Chris Jones had one of the best games any defensive lineman had all season. 6 QB hits in one game, but Karlaftis and Dunlap. Since week 14, they're 5th in pressure rate. Before that, they were 26. So their defensive line's been getting after it. Mahomes kind of put the cherry, I think, on his MVP case. To me, there's not much reason to go against them. And I think this game was kind of a reminder how they've done it differently. They're doing it with 2 tight ends and a lot of plays under center. And, throwing the ball shorter. His average depth of target is shorter. It's a different Mahomes. You get the spectacular plays, but it's a different type of Chiefs offense. That's who they've been.
It's a different offense, you're right, because it's been very running back, tight end-centric. A huge chunk, a higher percentage than any of his career seasons of his touchdown passes have been short touchdown passes to running backs and tight ends, and you see it.
They're a great red zone team.
They are. They've been good. Their defense, to your point, pressured Stidham on 45.2 of his dropbacks, their highest rate for the Chiefs in 3 seasons. I wanted to see if Stidham could come back and do what he did last week against a great Niners defense, and it didn't even come close to happening. I mean, that's fine.
I thought he played well, though.
He's fine, but last week was a magical performance. Is he Brock Purdy? Did they clone Brock Purdy and turn him into Jarrett Stidham? They did not.
Look at it this way, Mark. The first Super Bowl we ever went to was at Lucas Oil Stadium.
Yeah.
It was Indianapolis. They got the bid because of the new stadium.
I remember that week.
And it was they got beautiful weather. That was 46, so Greggy's blocked it out because of the outcome of the game itself. But I don't know if the Colts get another Super Bowl. This is your chance as a city to get something that could be better than the Super Bowl because it's the 2 best teams. You say it yourself, Greggy.
Yeah, but
you can get the 2 best teams in football in your city for a huge game, and instead you're going to have the Central Zone Invitational in the building. It's not too late to make a couple phone calls.
It does seem like you could send the Central Zone volleyball operation to a different indoor facility. It does feel possible.
We know, Phil Wesseling, I believe his daughter's been playing at this tournament in the past, and he's thinking there ain't going to be a Bills-Chiefs AFC championship.
Okay. I see where you're going with that. But good job.
Gregg just blew my left eardrum out.
All right.
Stidham is very athletic. I think he'll get a backup job because of that. I think he played quite well in this game overall, and I do
sort
think
of is already a backup.
Right.
He does have that job.
Well, he's a free agent.
What?
It's wide open. He showed way more than I would have ever expected in these two games. Just like
last week alone would get you further job.
I had no clue that he could run as well as he could, or that he had the arm that he could. And I did have a clue Kadarius Toney could be this good, but I think it's pretty
shifty.
telling, man, how powerful and shifty he is going into the playoffs. What a big deal!
And also, the best play in this game that didn't count was the Chiefs in their huddle doing the ring around the rosy with their arms around each other, like swirling around, then coming out of it like a hurricane into a bizarre position. They wound up as a trick play with Toney scoring.
Touchdown.
It got reversed by a flag, but then he scored on the next play. I think it's almost he's like their secret weapon. They gave up like a third-round compensatory pick for him. Like,
what do you think Mark Davis and Charles Woodson talk about? I feel like it's not the first time we've seen them just palling
He's
around
always
up in
there.
the
It's
luxury
always
suite.
Woodson there.
yeah, I don't know. Raiders history.
Do you think they have
Al
like a
Davis?
real friendship?
Well,
Like they're buds?
I think it's one of those friendships that's by,
I think they're talking ball. I mean, you could say a lot about Mark Davis.
You think he's asking like who should be my quarterback next year?
Well,
I mean, maybe a little bit of that, but more just talking about the game in front of him. That guy's a football guy. If nothing else, he's the son of the ultimate football guy. Can watch football every day of his life. I think they're just talking ball.
Got it.
Our friend Bert Breer did put out a report this morning that the Raiders are considering Jimmy Garoppolo, obvious ties to Josh McDaniels, as their lead man next season.
We'll get. Thank you for bringing that up. We'll get into it later on in the week or whatever. But like, is that an upgrade over Derek Carr?
I think it's almost like
what's going on over
apples and apples. But yeah.
Yes, Justin. Before we take a break.
Before the break, I forgot to do this for the last game.
Oh, you know what? He's again showing he's a man of principle and integrity.
He acknowledged that he ignored the concept of bongos a while back.
Right.
And in this same situation, now he's gone bongos, and he's gone, I'll remind you that I lost my log.
Right.
And it says a lot about his growth as a person.
He kind of lost everything. And yours was in a more dramatic way, but I did the same thing the previous week. You get behind your team, and you kind of try to put that positive energy. It just doesn't work out sometimes.
Right.
No. Got to detach. That's
And I love the integrity, but I love like execution even better. So we do want to get that with the game,
right?
If possible.
Yes, for the next lock, I will remember during the game.
Gravedigger is the only person attached to us that gave Christmas gifts. We didn't give them to anyone. He gave nice little Guinness flavored chocolates, infused with Guinness beer. Wonderful gift.
Very nice. Very thoughtful.
Had one.
Kind of a wild thing to pick. I was trying to. I texted her and said, "What made you think to do that?" And they said, "Hey, listen, it looked interesting." And I know Marc likes beer, and I was like, "Yeah, that's true."
I was wondering if I alone got that gift, and you guys got like rose scented, bathroom spray or something.
Gross. All right, let's take a break. We'll be right back. All right. Before we welcome in our buddy Nick Shook for the last time this season, we should clarify that, Gregg, you and I had indeed locked the Jaguars.
Really glad we're going back to settle this.
We got to clean that up.
You just pointed fingers at Graver for not, in a clean way.
Yes. It's like sloppier than Patriots special teams right now. We have to clean it up, or heads are going to roll.
Very ugly DVOA for your professionalism.
All right, let's now check in with the other team that played on that fateful Monday night in Cincinnati, the Bengals, who are looking to finish the regular season on high, even though they are peeved about the league's rule changes ahead of the playoffs.
Brown's going to throw from the end zone. Hit and brought down. Throws the ball. The ball comes out. Recovered for a touchdown. The Bengals knock it away. Trey Hendrickson stripped it away from Anthony Brown, and it's recovered in the end zone for a Cincinnati touchdown.
That's what you call taking care of business. Dan Horde, Dave Lapham with the call. The Cincinnati Bengals jumped out ahead early on the Ravens and kind of coasted from there, 27-16. Joe Burrow threw for a touchdown. Joe Mixon ran for another and pulled a coin out from his sock and flipped it in the air to mock the NFL's decision to potentially decide a playoff game if it were to happen with the Ravens by a coin flip for home field. That's not happening because Cincinnati took care of business. They are 12-4 Baltimore 10-7. Nick Shook, the pipe is here.
I'm here to flex in representation of the Bengals, who turned away all the criticism and all the consternation regarding the coin flip and said, you know what, we're going to go out, we're going to take care of business.
Just do it.
As a playoff team and a title contending team should do. It wasn't the prettiest game, guys. Now, they jumped all over them early thanks to those takeaways. They really should send the Ravens a gift basket, provided they don't run into them again in the postseason, which we'll see, because they did them a huge favor by playing their third string quarterback this week and protecting Tyler Huntley in the event that he has to play in the playoffs. Anthony Brown, well, probably a nice kid, Oregon product, clearly not suited for a game of this magnitude. 2 very ugly interceptions early. You saw the strip sack recovered for a touchdown there. That was the Bengals' route to victory. They jumped all over and put 21 points on the board from those takeaways. They go into the half with a 24-7 lead. And that was pretty much all she wrote, because the second half, they didn't even break 100 yards offense. That's something that they need to figure out going forward. They got to figure out what the Ravens did defensively that shut them down. They missed some opportunities. Joe Burrow had Jamar Chase open for a touchdown, underthrew him a little bit. There was a couple of long passes that didn't get completed that could have gone for big gains and potentially touchdowns. They don't look quite as strong as they have for the last 2 months, but coming off of what they dealt with last week, I can understand that. And all in all, they got the job done. They secured the home game going into next weekend. That's all that really matters to them. And we can leave the change in the coin purse. Go spend it on parking, because you don't have to spend it or use a quarter to flip it to figure out where you're playing next week.
I think it will be fine for that, number one, although that's, when you talk about these players' salaries, not a huge issue.
I also use like a card now to pay for parking. I don't even use cards.
I normally do too.
Yeah, it's not because you live in LA.
Yeah.
Well, it's instructed of us. But I mean, the
Class
Bengals
warfare.
Humble brag.
They were messy down the stretch, Shook, and I think it said a lot about the Ravens. They had one drive of their last 10 that went over 12 yards, and it kind of looked like there were these big misconnections. The biggest concern for me, because I just kind of this Week 18 stuff, I'm willing to let it blow away, but Alex Kappa was carted off the field with a left ankle. You already have Lyle Collins out. That's the entire right side of your line. This is what happened to him last year when they were trying to, keep Joe Burrow upright. So that just is a lingering concern for me. But I really thought at least it showed their defense, which were turnover ball hawks last January, that they could do it again today. And they preyed on a quarterback that was not ready for prime time. But this Ravens team in general, I mean, Rappaport reported this morning that it is essentially he said that no one truly knows if Lamar Jackson will be ready for the wild card matchup. And it just seems like it's trending in the direction of are we going to see him again this season? And if we don't, and you get this or Tyler Huntley next week, I love Cincinnati's chances.
Our friend Peter Schrager, he was on Bill Simmons' football podcast, and I happened to catch on Twitter. They had a conversation about this, and Schrager's plugged in as anybody. And he didn't report directly that it was something he was hearing from the Ravens, but he certainly, in the conversation that he was having about the subject of Lamar Jackson and his continuing absence, kind of let it hang out there that there might be more to this potentially.
It just feels like
than just an injury with his uncertain financial future. And I just thought it was notable coming from Schrager the way he, had that conversation. Interesting thought.
It is fascinating. It also is weird to look at the different reports about whether Lamar is going to play next week, or that they're feeling confident or they're not feeling confident. And it changes depending on which reporter you listen to and what time of the day and which day it is. But to me, actions speak louder. The Ravens knew the most likely outcome here was they were going to lose this game with a backup, and that they were going to go back to Cincinnati next week. That's exactly what's happening. They ended up sitting some of their starters,
Marc Andrews,
including Huntley, who is the key one that they really didn't want to lose if they don't have Lamar. To me, you wouldn't sit Huntley if you felt like you needed this game, or if that you're confident Lamar. It's an awkward Week 18 thing. I hate this when they play each other twice in a row. I think the Bengals, if I had to pick, might be the best team in the NFL. And yet I think this is an awkward matchup next week for them. It's a division matchup, a very good defense, one of the only defenses in the league, if healthy, Shook, that I think can hold down Cincinnati's offense and just ugly it up, especially if they can get any quarterback play.
Yeah, you saw an example of that today. I mean, like I said, in the second half, they couldn't break 100 yards. I mean, their offense went from being fairly high-powered, the same offense we've seen for most of the second half of the season, to one that was borderline anemic. Joe Burrow just didn't quite look comfortable. Joe Mixon's stat line doesn't reflect a game that you'd be proud of. And they've shifted a while ago. They shifted toward this pass-heavy offense that incorporated the running back in the passing game a little bit, but you couldn't really rely on the run game that constantly or that consistently. If you were in this situation for 4 quarters next week, you talk about ugly in a game up. We get an ugly playoff game where the Bengals suddenly find themselves in a situation where they got to go down and try and kick a game-winning field goal if it's, that close. I could very much see that happening because if Huntley's in the lineup, he gives them a better chance to match them offensively or at least come close enough, closer than Anthony Brown could.
They averaged 4 yards per play today, Shooky.
Yeah,
That's
they
crazy.
fell behind early, too.
That's crazy.
So, they got to sit on that lead. There's no guarantee that you're going to go sit on that lead in a playoff game next week. So, yeah, definitely a little bit concerned about them, but I agree with you. Might be the best team in the NFL when all things are running correctly. They just didn't in the second half.
I don't think you're getting 2 weeks of this from the Bengals in a row. The line issue concerns me, but if Tyler Huntley played today and did not turn the ball over and they still just did what they've done under Tyler Huntley, which is be a very unimpressive to the eye offense in terms of production, this game is very close and goes down to the final minutes. It was the turnovers that set them up for these quick scores. They weren't moving the ball.
One more week of the Baltimore Ravens. The
cheers
hay
to
is
that.
almost
Cheers
in
to
the
that.
barn, and we can move on as a football world. Hey, before we go to the next game, Shooky, as I said earlier in the show, this feels like the Bills are a great team and a great story, and it just feels like this could be their year. But Cincinnati is a great story, too, and they have a great team, and they have also, like the Bills, a tremendous quarterback who believes in his team and believes in himself. He was asked after the game, while wearing a giant white turtleneck and looking like a cooler Kevin McAllister from Home Alone, he was asked about the idea of a Cincinnati Bengals Super Bowl window.
The window's my whole career, and everybody that we have in that locker room, all the coaches we have, things are going to change year to year, but our window's always open.
He's good with these quotes.
That's not my quarterback, but I wish it was.
Yeah, I know. Every couple of weeks he drops a verbal dime like that.
Mm-hmm. And
Guys,
in addition to the physical dimes on the gridiron.
In addition to those,
in addition.
Shook.
Yeah. I mean, is 90s fashion completely back? Because
it's back.
I got some serious flashbacks there.
It is in Ohio, I'd say.
It just got there. No, we've reached a tipping point in this the nostalgia culture right now. When New York Times is doing a profile on the kids of today are now using digital cameras that they're finding in their moms' and dad's drawers, and because they prefer that to using their phones. We're reaching a saturation point of
that's cute
of nostalgia, but I guess every generation hits that. So whatever.
Good luck finding new digital tapes when you run out of the one that you're using that was in the camera to begin with in your mom's closet. Just a warning
SD
signal.
cards.
Yeah.
Let's head to Heinz Field, where Mike Tomlin was looking to keep up one of the most impressive streaks in professional football.
Pickett throws it down the middle. Touchdown, George Pickens. Pickett to Pickens from 31 out, and the Steelers in position to tie it up. This is what makes a quarterback on the edge of becoming a great quarterback.
Oh, look at that. That's Craig Wolfley saying that Kenny Pickett is on the edge of becoming a great quarterback. Now, you may or may not agree with Wolfley and Bill Hillgrove of WDVE, but those are the vibes around the Pittsburgh Steelers after a season-ending 28-14 win over the Browns. The Jets losing again cost the Steelers a playoff spot. It's the Dolphins that take that 7th seed, but Shook, incredible way for them to wrap their season. And yes, for Mike Tomlin, he keeps that incredible streak of over 500 seasons. They finished 9-8.
Yeah, this is the rebuilding year. This was supposed to be the transitional year for the Steelers. The first year without Ben Roethlisberger, the year that everything just fell apart, except they go 9-8. He stays above 500 in the season. He finishes there. Kenny Pickett is clearly the best quarterback on the roster. I'm not going to say he's on the edge of being a great quarterback because there's still a lot of things he's got to work on, but you see the glimpses, you see the decisiveness, you see the fact that he's comfortable in the pocket and he knows what to do when he's under pressure. Let's think about this, guys. They finished with a little bit over 300 yards offense, 337, 9 of 15 on third down, yet Kenny Pickett finished with under 200 passing yards and completed just 13 passes. Do you know why they converted those third downs? Because Kenny Pickett extended the play and found his guys over and over again. It's not the stuff that, it's not the in-between stuff where he overthrows a guy or he misses a guy or somebody drops a pass, Deontay Johnson, Connor Hayward, a couple of those today. It's the stuff in the key downs. And that's what excites me about him. I'm not, like I said, I'm not going to say he's on the edge of being a great quarterback, but he's exciting. Also exciting, George Pickens. He had just 3 catches today, 72 yards in that touchdown that we just played on that highlight. That is a pairing that I cannot wait to see where they go, because it's clear they already have that connection. They're just starting to work on those back shoulder fades down the sideline. And George Pickens, as we all know at this point, is a freak of nature. If Kenny Pickett continues to develop at the speed he's at right now, and Pickens continues to rise up and get better over the years, man, the AFC North better watch out. That's going to be quite a duo for years to come. So it's a really triumphant way for them to end the season, a season that nobody expected anything out of them. They avoid finishing in the cellar. They finish above 500, and they got a lot to be excited. They also have some things they need to address in the offseason. But, man, an organization that really knows how to keep things stable, even when it looks like everything's against them.
It's a very Browns-esque end of the season. I feel like they've lost to the Steelers in week 17/18 like 47 times. But it's a very Steelers-esque end, because it sort of, to me, reminds me of what happened in Jacksonville a little bit, where you started off with an offense that just looked completely lost at sea. Here we are today. You found a quarterback. You found weapons around him. An offensive line that was in tatters in the summer. They're not perfect, but they were competent. The running game grew. Najee Harris turned into something better than we thought. All these little pieces, and they're all in the same contract essentially together, and you still have one of the best coaching staffs in the league that refused to die this season on any level. I love the Mike Tomlin situation. I know there's some Steelers fans that in the past we need this guy out of here. He can't get us over the hump. I'll take Mike. There have been that from Steelers fans. Absolutely.
What hit me?
I would
Digger.
take Tomlin over literally almost every coach in the league outside of Belichick.
What?
That sounds in real time like Gregg does not agree, but I think you have to say, Greg, that Mike Tomlin is just
100% agree.
Straight non-losing
unbelievable
seasons
coach
and multiple Super Bowls.
They should be the playoff team. The playoffs would be more fun with him in it. They're 7-2 in their last 9 games. I've always thought it's a little underrated to end your season with a win, because all the teams that make the playoffs don't get to do that except for one. And the Steelers weren't going to win the Super Bowl.
Oh, Greggy.
I'm just saying the Steelers were going to win the Super Bowl. They were going to probably lose next week to the Bills. To just end the season on a 4-game winning streak and we got robbed by what happened and stuff, that feels great. I know they would have rather go watch a playoff game.
No,
but
there's good vibes. You're right.
It's a huge success.
It's fun. Yeah.
The season is, for what it was and what it was expected to be and what it seemed like it was going to be in October, a huge success, and a lot of reasons for optimism. Speaking of reasons for optimism, Shooky, you are a lifelong Browns fan. We talked about it on the Thursday podcast a little bit. Deshaun Watson and his underwhelming start to his Browns career, and whether there was any reason for concern. What were your thoughts about his performance in this game and in general the 6 starts or whatever he made this season, 5 starts?
I'm not concerned necessarily with his play. I am concerned about the fit with the coaching staff, whether they know how to properly use his talents, because he's kind of shaken off a little bit of the rust with each week. He's not back to where he was still, but you see glimpses of it. Today, he had no time to throw all day. Pittsburgh's defense, which was supposed to be their strength all year and wasn't for a good portion of it, but is very opportunistic, got after him. 7 sacks, could have had 10, maybe even 12 as a team, because he escaped 4 or 5 of them on his own. I mean, he's doing everything possible. He made a couple of bad throws.
He also holds the ball forever.
For sure.
Some of those sacks I thought were on him. Sacks are a QB stat. And to me, that's been the number one problem he's had the last 6 weeks is he's holding the ball kind of like a rookie quarterback. And he's always been a little bit like that, but you haven't seen the spectacular plays to kind of offset that.
Well, I mean, Greg, you can even go back to his time in Houston. Years ago, my biggest issue was him with the fact that he'd run out of clean pockets. That was not the case today, but that was his issue for a long time. So that's where I go with the fit. I don't know if necessarily this offense is really fit for him, if Kevin Stefanski and the way that it's set up. I'm telling you, they're going to make a change at defensive coordinator. I think they have to at this point based on how they've played for the majority of the season. I'm not saying he's going to get fired, but I understand that Kevin Stefanski should be under fire for the way that this team performed this year, especially in key moments. He looked like he just didn't have a good grasp on game management, and I'm just really curious, a little bit concerned about how they proceed from here with him and Watson as a pairing.
It shows you because, I mean, this was a coach of the year a couple years ago. Everything looked like sky is the limit. They've beaten the Steelers in the playoffs, and where they are now, I mean, I think a lot of this can be put on Stefanski. Obviously, I think Joe Woods is history, but in-house, I wonder if they wonder what you're wondering. Is Stefanski and his scheme the right fit for unfortunately, this massive investment that we've made, and it's like that investment has power over the coaching staff.
Well, Jimmy Haslam took over Browns ownership 10 years ago now, so the length of this podcast.
What a 10 years it's been.
The team is 54, 106, and 1 since then. That's the second worst mark in the league. I wish I knew who the worst was. I'm guessing the Jaguars.
Probably my team. And Marc, one last thought. You are the number one Bernie Kosar supporter. He is, in some ways, your surrogate father. Your thoughts on him being dismissed from the team's radio broadcast team on Sunday. Earlier in the week, he placed a bet on the Browns to win the game.
Well, did he talk about it or something?
I don't know, but I just want to give you the floor,
I don't think he did,
Marc.
but I think it's unfortunate. You're essentially an NFL league employee when you're operating out of that. It can be seen that way, and you break a clear league policy. We all know about that. I did find it interesting that it was reported he bet $19,000, which is his number, of course, his jersey on the Browns to win.
You can't tell me that Bernie has that much money floating around that he should be making that.
Well, he
wager in
doesn't
the first
now
place.
after not winning that.
Oh, Bernie.
But you know what? Bernie Kosar, I love Bernie Kosar, and I also locked this game up.
In honor of
Bernie.
Bernie
And I locked it
Kosar.
up for Bernie. I
There
love
you
Bernie.
go.
So you and
good
Bernie kind of on the same. Oh no, he was picking the Browns, so you weren't on the same page. That's good.
No,
We don't know whether did he wager on the Browns, or do we just know he wagered on the game?
on the Browns
on the
to beat
Browns.
the Steelers.
There you
and
go. His
$19,000.
decision-making
And by-
maybe not always
By
sound,
the way, the
but his heart
Jaguars
in the good place.
were the worst team over the last 10 years.
Good.
Former researcher and now 7'9" producer Drew Christensen has confirmed to me.
He can't let go, Drew, by the way. I emailed the research team privately earlier today to get some information, and then he comes in on my IM client saying, hey, dummy, you should have known this or something like that. I'm like, bro, you got to let go. You're not in the research department anymore. And I could keep talking about Drew right now because he never talks.
No, he's not. You can say anything you want.
Get a camera on him. Like all 8'4" of him, he's just going to stew and maybe squash me after the show. Anyway.
It's happened before.
There he is. Drew, do you have anything to say? This is your chance. It's week 18 to finally clap back at the bozos on this side of the glass.
Motionless and silent.
You know what's good, though? If it ever comes down to it and it's like on-air versus behind-the-glass showdown, we've got Shook on our team to take down
We got
Drew.
the pipe. And the nice transition there, Greggy. The pipe all season, and it's been a few years now. You've been awesome and a great asset for us, helping to cover all these Sunday games. So as another regular season comes to a close, we sincerely thank you, sir. I think you're getting better every year you do this. And you're a stud, buddy. So thank you very much.
Thank you. You know what? My parting words will be this. As a league employee, I do not condone betting on games. However, if my life depended on it, I would always bet on you guys.
Oh,
okay.
Well,
Thank
now
you.
you're fired, but I'm glad.
Thank you.
It's pretty clearly laid out in the guidelines. But Shooky, thank you very much, buddy. Have a great night. Get a lift in.
I love you also.
And
thanks, guys.
Yes,
Thanks, Shook.
we love you. All right, we'll be right back after this. All right, welcome back. Let's head to Denver for a AFC West matchup that had nothing on the line, and yet people were talking all throughout the contest. We'll tell you why. First, this.
Play fake. Russ rolls to his right. Throws the ball wide open. Receiver. Cortland Sutton. Touchdown, Denver. 20 yards. Russell Wilson to Cortland Sutton. Sutton's second touchdown reception of the season. And he was wide open.
Miserable season for the Broncos. We all know that. And there's Dave Logan, KOA. The fact that Russell Wilson showed a little bit of a pulse these last couple of weeks of the season.
Everything's fixed.
Well, I wouldn't go that far, but it's better than the opposite, where he finishes with 8 touchdown passes or something. So maybe something. And you also get a win, 31-28 over the Chargers, and Russell Wilson had 3 touchdown passes in the game. Greggy, you watch this game, and what I was alluding to was the Chargers, based on the Ravens-Bengals outcome earlier, were locked into the 5 seed. There was a thought that a lot of the starters wouldn't play. And not only did a lot of Chargers starters play, they played deep into the game, and one of their key players left on a cart. So a lot of criticism for the head coach, Brendan Staley.
Yeah, Mike Williams has a back injury. Ian Rapport said X-rays were negative, that there'll be tests on Monday. It didn't look great, although Staley said in the postgame that he could have maybe returned to the game, Mike Williams. Joey Bosa was also shaken up and then just didn't return, but that one didn't seem serious. The starters were pulled by Staley with the score 31-20 Broncos with 11 minutes left. That I'm counting starters as Herbert. But they weren't all the starters. I mean, Keenan Allen
11 minutes left in the second quarter.
In the fourth quarter.
Oh, in the fourth quarter.
So,
late in the game.
Whoa.
So they kind of got the worst of both worlds, which is they tried to win the game, but the Broncos and old Russ was putting it on them.
Hey, look at that throw on the run to Judy. That's old Russ.
So it was crazy. That throw you're talking about was part of a 3-play, 75-yard touchdown drive with 25 seconds left in the first half. When that drive started, again, 25 seconds left in the first half, Russ had 14 passing yards. So it was the Russ of old.
Okay.
And they were running the ball a little bit.
Important context, Greg. Thank you.
But then he finished with 283 and 3. He suddenly had bombs away. He had 3 of those beautiful Russell bombs.
Hey, I'm Russell Wilson, and I throw a sexy deep ball.
Down the stretch of this game, and the Chargers defense, who were playing all their best players, kind of got steamrolled by Latavius Murray and Russell Wilson. So it all was strange, and so was Staley's explanation afterwards, where he said that you only have so many players with only 2 practice squad elevations. Other playoff teams had to play their best players today as well. These aren't easy decisions. In hindsight, it's perfect for everyone to decide. No,
see, that's
just not really.
That doesn't
true.
ride with me, because you can't say things like every other playoff team was dealing with this and doing it the same way. It's like, no, they weren't. We saw all across the league that teams weren't doing that.
The Giants played with, as we mentioned, like the 2 tight end personnel the whole game because they didn't want to play their wide receivers.
Right. The one thing is, because I think there's been a little bit of a pattern. We kind of questioned the use of Herbert after he was hurt. Keenan Allen got put back in a little prematurely and got dinged up. And we've seen how different this whole thing is when either Keenan Allen or Mike Williams are not available. And so this is a worst-case scenario if Mike Williams were ever not available next week. It's trending in a good direction, but I get it. You're the coach. You can do whatever you want. Maybe the players are telling you, we want to play. I get all that. But it's like the only thing that matters when they started this game, because they were locked in with where they were going to go, is next week.
Right. I was walking through town on Friday, and all of a sudden I hear a very familiar voice. And it just so happens that Matt Money Smith, on his very popular drive time radio show here in Los Angeles, was doing a live show from this place called Rock and Brews, and of course I ducked in there and I chatted with Money, and we were talking Chargers, of course, the former voice of God on this show and also the voice of the Chargers now, and he was optimistic. You know, he gets extra guap the deeper they go in the playoffs. He's money for a reason,
right? So
he wants a deep playoff run for a lot of reasons, and he was saying we're healthy, like this team has a chance, they're fine. And then I was at a barbershop yesterday, and I was talking to George.
You're all over the place
at Jags Barbershop in Westchester here in LA,
town.
And he is a huge Chargers fan, and we were having the conversation that they're healthy. He's like, but this is a star-crossed team. Something always seems to happen. And that's all I could think today while they're leaving these players in and Mike Williams is getting carded. Like, be smart, Chargers. Don't let the football gods come for you. Don't give them extra chances.
So ultimately, George, the salon man, knew more than
Why
Matt
would he
Money
be a
Smith.
Salon man?
Well, just that haircut.
It's a barber shop,
The
Marc.
barber. He knew more than Matt Money Smith, the play-by-play
Do you go
man.
to a salon?
No. I mean, assuming a salon is typically not somewhere for me. But
a salon.
You also saw a broadcaster I enjoy very much in Petros.
You did. I let him know that you're a big fan.
I said just let him know. I really love his style and what he does, and it sounded like his response was incredibly underwhelmed.
Well,
and then it left me with a bad taste in my mouth on that text thread because it was just like you were kind of sticking it to me.
I know. I worried when I saw your reply. I was like, oh, no, Marc took it a certain way.
Well,
I know you're a big fan. Petros and Money, again, the big drive time team here on 570 AM radio here.
Yeah.
For some reason, I felt compelled when I met him to almost immediately tell him that you were a huge fan. And I think I caught him off guard because why would this guy that he just met then be like, oh, my friend loves you? And he was like, oh, cool. So when I wrote, oh, cool is what he said, you took it as like him being like, oh, cool. But that was never the tone.
Over text, you cannot tell what the tone is. And the tone, the verbiage was, clipped.
You know what my mom says? No good deed goes unpunished. I was just trying to do you a solid, and look who catches fire ultimately.
I mean, I don't.
Talk about sinking over this one.
Suppose it was a good deed. Did they have you on the show?
No. You think I'm not going? I'm not talking to a mic
Your
unless
NFL Network's Dan
you
Hanzus.
pay me.
You're at the thing, and they don't have you on. You've worked with Matt Money Smith for
that's
hundreds
LA
of hours?
Sports Radio. They had a Kings defenseman on there. They were chopping things up. I have no idea half of what's going on in LA sports. Hey, Gravedigger, you were saying?
Sorry, I didn't mean to derail that very interesting conversation.
I'm sure it was.
I just wanted to remind everyone, it feels like forever ago that Justin Herbert suffered that rib injury, and we were all wondering why Brandon Staley left him in the game as long as he did. It seems like he didn't learn from whatever happened earlier in this season. In this game.
Or the Keenan Allen situation.
Well, it's also weird because they're one of the teams that were at the forefront of never play any players in the preseason. So I'm almost less concerned about that he played everyone. That was really annoying. And if Mike Williams is compromised next week, then that would be the biggest problem. But also, he wanted to, in theory, I think, keep the winning vibes going. That was the idea. And they lost the game to the Broncos. And it wasn't the backups that lost. It was the starters that lost.
Fans of somewhat recent football history will remember the ultimate, and not to bring it up again because now I'm going to talk about 42, Greg, and I'm not doing it on purpose. But the ultimate flex in this mode was when Tom Coughlin in Week 17 Week 18, when the Patriots were going for the perfect season on New Year's Eve, the Giants were already locked into a wild card spot. Coughlin said, I'm playing everybody, and we're trying to knock off the undefeated Patriots in a very Tom Coughlin type move. And they played this gorgeous back-and-forth shootout that the Patriots held on for the win. But it really did, I think, and they talk about it now, and I think it was true. It kind of really elevated the Giants, not just through the NFC playoffs, but when they saw the Pats again in the Super Bowl, they felt confident. We could beat them. They're not unbeatable. But usually you just got to use common sense and be smarter about it. I guess we're talking about it maybe a little too much because nothing that bad happened, but
you
it
know
was
what?
interesting.
Before Coughlin, Vince Lombardi did the same thing in a very critical situation at the end of a season and said it was one of his favorite days of coaching, one of his greatest coaching experiences, to have his guys go out there when it didn't matter and to go do it anyways. They lost the game, but it's
Belichick did it on the regular. I mean, people would lose their minds. He didn't always,
the result's
but
not
sometimes.
good. The result's not good.
Remember when Wes Welker blew out his knee in a meaningless Week 18?
That was unfortunate. We should mention quickly,
17.
too, Sean Payton confirmed he spoke to Broncos ownership about the head coaching vacancy. He can't officially interview for the job for another week and a half. Because of league rules, because he's still under contract with the Saints. You have to wait until after the wild card round.
What are they going to trade? They don't even have any first-round picks.
They have future first-round picks. And Rap Sheet reported that conversations happened about the trade and that part of the situation may already be settled, the trade part. So we'll see if Sean Payton gets a better offer, but we'll see.
We have Payton, who's been biding his time with Fox this year, obviously, talking about the conversation with the Broncos.
Any team that would want to inquire or speak with me can do so. They just need permission from the Saints. And then down the road, if that's something that materializes into anything else, then there would be compensation required, much like a player trade. Denver's the first team, and I was able to have a conversation with their owner, and that's kind of the protocol. So it would go team to Saints, and then the interview process can't officially begin until the 17th of this month.
Okay.
So that's really where it's at.
I mean, one word, leverage.
Right.
This is where we think Sean Payton wants to go.
Well, will
see.
he have other options? We'll find out. It actually occurred to me during this game, is Staley worried about Sean Payton? So he's still trying to win games because Sean Payton's made it awfully clear he wants that Chargers job. Mm-hmm. The most interesting thing Sean Payton said when he spoke to our Peter Schrager there on Fox was quarterback would not be the most important thing to him. Ownership and the GM and the structure, that's what matters to me. When I arrived in New Orleans, we didn't have a quarterback. He basically saying, I can make the quarterback thing work. I'm worried about the owner. And what do owners have? They have money. And what does Walmart have?
All the money.
All the money.
And as bad as, we've talked about the Russell Wilson side of this and why it would make it messy for someone going there. But I think you could maybe even get out of that contract in another year if it ends up being terrible. If you're going to Denver as a head coach, you got to be a high quality guy with a resume to have some rope to survive a potential bad Russell Wilson year too. it makes a little more sense. That's a great city, great fan base, great history, and new ownership. We don't know about them, but they got a ton of money they'll spend to make the Broncos great
outside
again.
of the Russell Wilson contract, which you're right. I think at some point you make a decision. If it's not working, you move on. Everything else about the Denver Broncos, I think, would appeal to Sean Payton.
Right, and he wants to coach, and I'm not sure, other than possibly the Rams, where he could have an opportunity. So,
Let's see what happens there.
All right, let's head to the most amazing game that's ever been played. To Lucas Oil Stadium, the home of the Central Zone Invitational, later this month. Plug. Now I'm just going to plug
Davis
it.
looking. He scrambles
I'm sure
out
it's
to
an
the
amazing
right.
event.
Got to get rid of it. Throws it to the end zone and caught it. Jordan Akins. My goodness. On 4th and 20.
Oh, come on.
Akins with the catch. My guy, Jordan Akins. So they're going to go for 2. Here we go. Texans going for the
Come
deuce
on.
and the lead. Davis looking, throwing to the end zone.
No.
Caught and
No.
converted.
Yes.
Jordan Akins
No.
comes up big again, wide open as the Texans grab a 1-point lead with 50 seconds to go.
What are you? That was one of the dumbest things.
It was so good.
Or every Colts game of the last month.
No, not even that.
I mean, it's...
Why did the Texans win this game?
So
You got Davis Mills doing that at the end.
Marc Vandermeer with the call. KILT. Yeah, they convert a 4th and 20 for a touchdown. Go for 2. Make it to beat the Colts. And Zach Kiefer was right. They had 1 win in them under Jeff Saturday, by the way.
That is crazy.
32-31. And because the Texans have this incredible comeback win, and I guess, the Colts made it happen by playing miserable, boneheaded defense in the final plays of the game, but, they don't pick number 1 anymore. They drop to the number 2 pick, and the Chicago Bears get the number 1 pick. It could be one of the more crushing developments for the Texans in many years when you look back at it.
Yep. It was delicious. I don't know why. I don't think they deserve any good luck the way they've handled everything, especially if they don't keep Lovie Smith, although we'll hear from Lovie in a second. But I just love these sort of insane Week 18 moments. And Davis Mills...
He win this game.
He had a 4th and 12 on the move to Brandon Cooks earlier in that drive. He was 4th and 20 under... extreme pressure. This is Davis Mills. This is not Patrick Mahomes. He's rolling to his left, and he has 2 defensive linemen right on top of him, and then he throws across his body, and the Colts defender has the game. All he has to do is knock it down. Instead, he runs forward.
What are you doing?
Justin jumps up. It goes right through his arms into the waiting hands
Just
of
knock it
Akins.
down.
It was one of the moments of the season. It was the only moment of the season that I yelled out in the newsroom and screamed, probably annoying Marc from 50 feet away.
No, you didn't annoy me, but to me,
You're loyal to football.
Like
I'll tell you
Gregg,
that.
I know that
something.
It's amazing moments of athleticism, but there aren't a lot of Texans fans that have their head on straight.
I was
that are
rooting
standing
for it.
up and
I also
cheering.
picked the Texans to win. I wanted that.
But that's great. Those are trifling
Oh,
items.
Gregg.
If there's an Andrew Luck and no other quarterback in this draft, then it's meant to be a better draft. The Texans, because of Davis Mills' late game heroics, don't have the chance to pick the quarterback they want.
This
means this
will
game is utterly
reverberate.
meaningless.
It could reverberate for years for this organization, and I don't know enough. We got to talk to our
Bryce
buddies.
Young's the consensus,
Yeah,
but we'll see.
We'll
But
see.
it's but
We
now you
shall
don't control
see.
that. This whole absurd
But
Texans journey for 2 years should have
Right.
ended with this.
And to Gregg's point, and especially if you follow a team that can't get a quarterback for 50 years, they had Deshaun Watson, a generational talent. That ended the way it ended. To then fall into a potential another number 1 overall pick star, that would have kind of sneaky annoyed me and other teams that are in my position. So maybe I don't feel too terribly. And you also I'm just as a football fan, I'm thinking as a Texans fan.
Right.
That's why I'm mad thinking about it. But the Texans and their players and their coaching staff, they know whatever is the next era of Texans football probably doesn't involve them. So that's why the game played out the way it did. I mean, it makes me think about the old movie Major League with Tom Berenger and Corbin Burnson and Charlie Sheen. It's was there some type of front office figure that was no, and racing down to the field to try to stop this? But of course, nobody did, and I don't believe that happened.
There's no I don't think anyone's saying Lovie Smith and the players should have tried to lose this, but I think that is where you create just situationally a chasm between your front office who had plans to do. The one thing that could happen is if Chicago holds on to that, if they want to they fall in love with someone, then they're not taking a quarterback, and maybe you're right back where you started. But they can also trade that. The Texans also have Cleveland's first-round pick, so they have ammunition, but it's just like, come on,
you want to hear what
guys.
Lovie Smith has to say about the draft?
I would, because I don't know how often we'll get to hear from him again, depending on what they do.
Okay.
This is the option that I had. So you're saying, hey, guys, playing this last game, all that you've been working for all your life, you play to win, forget that, lose the game on purpose. I think that would be a hard one to get by. They wouldn't expect me to say that. I didn't. What we work each week, our game plan has been to win the game. It's kind of simple as that. And that's what we followed through on the day.
Ultimately, I'm happy for Smith. If this is how he goes out, he doesn't let ownership have. We have one other thing from Lovie. Okay, let's hear it.
Do I expect to be back? Yeah, I expect to be back. Absolutely.
It's like a dare, Greg. I dare you to bring me back.
He said he's been talking to ownership. Maybe that was a dare. I don't know if he's basing on that. The way that Ian Rappaport, our national insider, remember when they changed that to his title?
Did they change it again?
No, I think that's it. National insider.
I mean, football.
NFL
Tom
Network,
Pelissero.
He's the NFL Network insider.
Couldn't you make him international at this point?
Yeah.
It's an international sport. He's not dueling against
that's not
an
his
insider
title.
from Spain.
His title's NFL Network insider.
He reported, that Lovie's future was very much in doubt. Over on Fox, Jay Glazer thought Nick Caserio, the GM's future, might be in doubt. So we'll just see. We'll see what is going to happen.
We have developing news.
Oh boy.
Oh.
Developing news. According to, I'm being told, Rap Sheet's Twitter bio, national insider for NFL Network and NFL.com. I think that's new. I think that was tweaked somewhat recently. I'm going to do my digging as the Zoo.
Wait, isn't that what I said?
Yeah, you were right.
Yeah.
Okay.
I want to do some digging and find out when that changed.
I would just say you could go, if you wanted to pull full power move, you go Earth Insider. You're not dueling against NFL insiders from Africa or Germany.
I'll be digging on this story. Just leave it at that. Was there something else? Yeah.
I just like that. If they're sending him out, they don't deserve to win this game. They don't deserve it. This franchise, I don't. Remember, they were losing Deshaun Watson before anything happened either. He wanted out of this franchise, and
also
Greg,
keep in mind,
I know you're very excited about this.
The Colts don't want their division rival to get the number one pick either.
That's true too.
Very nice.
No, I think it was a savvy move by the Colts.
It was a good job by the Colts. Graver, though, you still your prediction that the Colts would finish in last place. That didn't happen.
True, but there's an argument to be made that Houston was a better team than Indy this year. They went 1-0-1 against them.
I think
only finished
in spirit,
with one
the
win
Colts
better.
are the worst team in this division. What a disastrous end to this season.
I think I believe the Texans went undefeated in their division.
No,
they went 3-13-1.
3-2-1 though in the division, which is
like that.
Ridiculous.
Yeah.
Lovie Smith started the season going for a tie and annoying everyone, and he ended the season going for the win with a 2-point conversion. Who says there can't be personal growth?
And annoying everyone.
Uh-oh. Just talking about it. Now it's official. The Texans once again in the market for a new head coach. Ian Rappaport and Mike Garafolo together reporting that the Texans have fired head coach Lovie Smith. Another one and done in Houston. So David Culley, given no chance in 2021 to build that program, fired, even though he kind of the team outperformed what they expected. Lovie Smith comes in, given no chance to build the operation, sticks it to the team out on the way out the door in Week 18, and then is let go. So once again, Marc, the Texans will be on the lookout for a coach. They do have some positives now, of course, in terms of what the job they have. They already have, I think, an extra number one. Is that correct?
Cleveland's for years to
And
come.
even though they, blew the number one overall pick, they picked number 2 in this draft with a lot of cap space, but also a lot of dysfunction around that organization in recent years.
Yeah, I think it's like it reminds me of reading like the various biographies on Bill Belichick, where he talks about when he left the whole Brown situation and was going to go to New England. It's like, just always think about ownership when you take a job. It's so important, because if that shifts, you're probably going to lose it, but ownership creates culture and everything else. And like, you do have something to offer as the Texans. They're loaded with draft picks. There's a couple of players on that roster that I think, because of the Texans, have been overlooked, young guys, and there's something to build off of. I think Lovie Smith showed down the stretch here coaching them that they were playing teams tighter. They weren't just the joke they were all of last season and for the beginning of this. And in the end, it didn't matter. You just get canned. And it's like, what is the direction? Why did you hire Lovie Smith?
Right.
I get that it wasn't the most inspiring hire, but like, did you in the back of your mind, if you're the GM, Nick Caserio, if you're the owner, Cal McNair, think, you know what, we're probably just going to get through this season with Davis, Mills, or whoever, set ourselves up post Deshaun Watson to get these draft picks after we trade them, and then get the coach we really want? It just is sort of dirty business to me.
Right. I can't remember an NFL head coach ever being hired where it felt like it was a short-term hire the minute they made it, and that that the coaching search itself was a mess. Easterby was involved. Josh McCown was involved. The whole Brian Flores suing the NFL felt like it was kind of involved and maybe pushed the McNairs. I just think it's embarrassing for Nick Caserio, whether he wants to put it on ownership or not, that he hired Culley as the first thing he did as GM. He made it 1 year. Then he got to hire Lovie Smith. He made it 1 year. Most GMs never get to their third head coach.
Right.
If you hire 2 head coaches, and that's over, I'm thinking of like Thomas Dimitroff when he hired Mike Smith and Dan Quinn. That lasted, 10, 15 years. But he's not getting to his third head coach. Caserio would be the first GM in history to ever get to hire 3 head coaches in 1 year. And yes, you can say, well, the Watson thing happened. They didn't cover themselves in glory there either. And I don't know where to put the blame. I put it on the organization, but it's just like embarrassing. And I already see the fans being like, well, they shouldn't have hired Lovie and he's not the guy anyways. It's like, this was always the plan. It's like, that's what fans of bad teams say, justify.
Right. It's just like, yeah, I mean, and one of the reasons why it's eyebrow raising is, yes, Lovie Smith, who they elevated to take the job, is 64 years old. He came up, he did, he had a bad run with Illinois, his previous head coaching experience in college, and it didn't seem like for a team that's young and trying to figure things out that you would hire an older veteran coach. And in a lot of ways, that didn't make sense because none of this really makes sense. There is no real roadmap right now for the Texans, and I would be very wary if I am and there are only 32 chairs, so there's always going to be a lot of interest in taking one of them. But I'd be very wary if I was a head coach going into that situation right now.
Yeah.
I don't care about the cap space and the draft picks. It's like, is that a functional operation, and do I want to be a part of it?
Well, they interviewed Jonathan Gannon, the Eagles defensive coordinator, twice last year, and supposedly he was a strong candidate, and there's been a lot of speculation that he might be the guy. Ian's already reporting that Gannon and 49ers defensive coordinator D'Amico Ryans, who used to play for the Texans.
Mm-hmm. What about Josh McCown?
Yeah, I say McCown.
I think
now
he's
that we're
out
a year
now.
later.
I think now that
so?
Easterby, because he was that was the whole Easterby sources, and he had McNair's ear. I think that was an Easterby thing.
I mean, we can I remember a time when they didn't want us to talk Easterby a little bit here and there, but let's be real that by removing that whole situation from what we know, you can attract a different type of candidate potentially.
Perhaps. And
I do love that Lovie got that win on the way out there.
I love that. And I also love that he has 3 years remaining on his deal, which are guaranteed
that's the great thing.
money and dollars. So there you go.
You don't have to go pound the pavement tomorrow for work. You're going to get paid well for the next 1,000 days.
Don't cry for me, Lovie Smith.
He's doing fine.
He'll be fine. But rightfully,
he's a prideful person though. So this is but it's not who's going to walk around viewing it as his fault.
I don't know.
Bad team behavior.
And that's just the start. That was a little teaser of New Horizons Monday. We'll be back on Tuesday, where we will recap all the madness that is coming up, the fallout from Week 18. Obviously, a beginning of a look ahead to the playoffs. And, of course, seeing what's going on across the head coaching ranks. There's always a ton of turnover, Greggy. We've been doing it, like we said, for a decade now.
It's crazy.
We're going to handle this. We'll be on top of it. You follow around the NFL, you will understand what's happening around the NFL. That's a promise.
10 years. We're here in the Chris Wesseling podcast studio. I was thinking of Chris when Nyheim Hines made those plays. He was always a big Nyheim Hines guy. It's like, why can't they get the ball more to Nyheim Hines? We miss Chris so much. It's the end of the 10th season. It's crazy. I had Graver listen to our first Week 17 regular season finale show to see if he could find any good little nuggets. And he said I was not even involved in that show because I was down, and we still did find some, but I was not in the show because I was down in the newsroom doing something else. I can only imagine it was like coaching firings or something like that. I don't know. I literally wasn't even on the show.
Yeah, it was a.
Did we still find a clip?
Yes, I listened to an hour-long podcast from 10 years ago today and found a clip.
Are we better now?
Why are you putting our producer on that job?
Just why not?
On the Football Sunday itself.
I should have told them earlier, but
I just had the earbuds in while I was watching the games this afternoon.
It's good stuff. It's good content.
It was fun.
I like staying in touch with our old show.
Yeah, do you think that the three of us as broadcasters have improved in the 10 years based on what you listen to?
Yes,
or have we declined? You could be honest.
No, you've obviously improved, but you were still, even back then, you could tell what superstars you were all going to be.
See, that's why he's our producer.
On the show itself, who do you think did the best job? You would just listen to the whole episodes. Who shined the brightest?
Wes.
Okay, well, I take that. Cannot argue with that.
It's still actually going to bother Marc.
No, it's
when
not.
The head goes
That's
to pillow.
one time it will not, because I think it's also deadly accurate.
When head goes to pillow, though.
Head's going to pillow in about 5 minutes, so not a lot.
I could hear Wes laughing at Dan's comments. Right there.
This is our hard to believe time flies, and this is our second full regular season without Chris now, but he's still very much part of the show and always will be. Love you, buddy, wherever you are. All right, the season's not over. The regular season's over.
Oh yeah.
272 down. How many to go, Greggy? On the spot, in a big spot.
13?
Heed the call. Let's see. You got 5. You have 5 games, a wild card weekend. 4 division, that's 9. 2 championship, 11. Super Bowl, 12. Right?
Wait, no.
No, something's not
6.
right there. 6 this weekend.
6.
Yeah.
4, 3, 2,
10.
1.
6, 4. 6, 4, 2, 1.
6, 4, 2, 1. 6 plus 4, 10 plus 2 plus 1. Nailed it.
Nice work.
Oh, the Pro Bowl skills competition. Sorry, 14. Right in front of me, Marc Sessler is wearing an extra large number 15 official Tim Tebow jersey tucked into his jeans as per the terms of the bet.
This was worth an hour.
Tied into the Week 16 Browns-Jets game. Marc, you're a man of your word. Congratulations.
You put a clown suit on Marc.
I didn't mean to. It was just a bet. I would have been wearing a Whedon jersey, but Marc, thank you.
Well, listen, and I sit next to Wesleyan in the newsroom, and I see the look of jealousy in his eye that I get to wear this for the first time ever. It was yours as a wedding gift. I had to pull the tag off of it.
Yeah.
So it's not been getting a lot of use by you.
It's not jealousy. It's pity. Poor Marc. He's fine with wearing the jersey. He looks good. He's got a nice dress shirt on underneath. He's really pulling off the look contrary to expectations. But every sad sack in the building has to come up and ask him about it. Why are you wearing a Tim Tebow jersey?
It has been slightly distracting.
See, that was worth the hour. I stand by it.
Well, not my hour.